Good evening. It is 7:01. Let's see who else is here. Who are we missing? Derek and Jenin? Well, given that we have a full agenda, I think we should get started. So I will call the meeting to order. Commissioner Palmer, can we start with the roll call?
Yes, absolutely. One moment, I'm promoting Commissioner Thompson. Let me just do one more scan for Commissioner Berry.
Don't see her.
Okay, great. All right, we will do the roll call. 4B01.
Present.
4B02 is present. 4B03.
Present.
4B04.
Present.
4B05.
Present.
4B06.
Present.
4B07.
Present.
4B08.
Present.
4B09.
Here. Had to be different.
Just to be different. Just to be different.
4B10 is not here or not here yet. Okay, we have a quorum, Chair.
All right, thank you. As you know by now, we are virtual. We ask that residents use the raise your hand feature to be called on. Each resident, when participating in community concerns, will have 1 minute. And we ask that in order to give everyone the opportunity to be heard, that there not be, multiple duplications of the same comment, if that is applicable tonight. I'm going to move straight into the discussion of the agenda. We need to make a modification. We're going to take Resolution 4B240501 off of consent and move it to be its own item. And so with that change to the agenda, is there a motion to accept the agenda as changed?
I accept motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Actually, I don't need you to accept it. I need you to move it.
Moved. So
Thank
moved.
you. Is there?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I see everyone's hand. Thank you. We will then go straight into the approval of the April 2024 minutes. Did everyone have the opportunity to review the minutes? And is there any area of concern with regard to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, then the minutes are approved by acclamation and we can move into a treasurer's report. Commissioner Yates, is there a report?
Yes, 1 moment, please. The current balance is in our checking account is $53,735.64. No quarterly report is due at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We can then go into commissioner updates. I'm going to go in numerical order. 4B01. You're muted.
Yeah, lost you in the tabs. Good evening, everyone. Community update for 4B01. I'll make this brief and start by extending condolences to the family who lost a loved member in the 7300 block of Blair last week. As many of you know, we did have a commander walk that following Tuesday. We had a nice turnout. One thing that I do want to highlight from that walk is that DC is still promoting a rebate program for cameras. So if you're interested in that, I can drop information in the chat. We will be following up with additional information. I believe that Officer Hamrick will be on this call tonight, and also other constituents that I've been in communication with. I also would like to say that there is a GoFundMe account for burial for that deceased member. So if you're so inclined, I'll drop that in the chat as well. And I'll answer any additional questions during the Q&A from constituents. That's all the updates.
All right, thank you. 4B02.
Yes, I just want to offer gratitude to the executive committee and the organizations that participated in ANC 4B's Earth Day Fair, which was about a week ago. We had the event during a lot of rain and it didn't stop people from showing up. So there's a lot of gratitude from and for the school, Tacoma Elementary, where the event was held. Lots of resources were shared about environmentalism and sustainability. It was a very lovely event. I just want to highlight that my monthly cleanup will take place Saturday, June 1st at 10 a.m. We meet by the Safeway on Piney Branch. And my office hours will this month be on a Saturday, June 22nd at 2 p.m., where I will be focused on talking to people about things going on in the neighborhood. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. 4B03.
Good evening. Just wanted to remind everyone that there's early voting. Began on the 26th, last day, June 4th. So if you haven't exercised the right to vote, please do so. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Before we move to 4B04, Commissioner Palmer, Commissioner Berry is in the panel list. I mean, in the participant list. Alrighty, 4B04.
No update at this time, Chair Brooks.
Thank you. 4B05.
Hello, good evening. Just looking forward to the presentation today in the Communications Tower Replacement Project in 4B05 from Spiro G. Notice, Lee Peterson, Shiri Subar from Alpha Tech. Had a good cleanup on May 19, thanks to the neighbors who joined. The next cleanup is on June 15, 9 a.m., 8th and Peabody. And still working to reschedule the MPD walk with Commander Lavenhouse and our SMD. They've only offered Wednesdays midday. It's tough for me, but trying to find a good time to do it, and hopefully in June. So I'll be communicating that in my newsletter. And just celebrating the new speed humps that we got on Peabody and Quackabos. So keep on putting in TSIs, and eventually, hopefully, they turn into real things in the neighborhood. Thanks.
Alrighty, 4B06.
Good evening. Just want to thank those who came out for my cleanup on May 19th. There will be another one in June. I'm just working on figuring out the best date for that. In the interim, please join me on June 3rd for my single member district meeting. DPW will be in attendance. Also on June 15th, for those who weren't able to come to the previous training, I have scheduled a Defend Yourself training that is going to be at Tacoma Library. And I'll be posting that information on my website and via my social media channels. Lastly, please save the date for August 15th. I am working to bring back Screen on the Green at Capital City. So there'll be more information going out about that because I will need the community's input on what movie to show. And that's all I have for the moment.
All right, thank you. 4B07.
Thanks. Just some quick updates regarding some upcoming events. I'm going to be holding May's single member district meeting on June 1st at 10 a.m. at the Lamond Rec Center. We're going to be having that's a May SMD meeting that was pushed from Memorial Day. June 6th, it looks like we're going to be having a meeting with folks in Manor Park regarding 245 Peabody Street. That's BZA case 21101. I would expect my newsletter for June to be out the week of June 10th. And on August, I know it's a little early, but August 27th is currently scheduled to be when Lamond Day will be held. It's August 27th. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. So my update includes a lot of DDOT notifications. So for those that are not aware, at the intersection of South Dakota Avenue and New Hampshire Avenue, there's a traffic light being installed. and it's tied to the Metro Branch Trail coming down First Street, crossing New Hampshire onto McDonald Place. So be on the lookout for that light to go live. I guess I would assume in the coming months. It's not quite completely installed yet, but it is coming soon. Additionally, construction around the circle / rotary, depending on where you're from, that's being installed at the intersection of 2nd Street and 3rd Street, right outside of the Walmart area and the Chick-fil-A. The construction for that has begun. Flexi posts have been installed. Some of us are doing a happy dance because it's finally come. There has been one issue pointed out by one business that apparently was turning left illegally for 100 years and doesn't understand now why they can't continue to turn left illegally into their parking lot. And I will be working through that with them. And I think those are all of the updates. Oh, that is not all the updates. There's been some nuisance crime going on along the First Street corridor, along Madison Street Northeast, Kennedy Street Northeast, and Longfellow Streets Northeast. Some believe that it's tied to a particular person, and we've been working with the Park Service to address an encampment that is in that area. And we don't know for sure that that's the case, and I don't want to accuse anyone of anything because everyone deserves their innocence until proven otherwise. But regardless, they cannot camp in the park. And so that encampment is in the midst of being removed. I think that is it for me at this time. So I'll move to 4B09.
Hello, everyone. And I just kind of wanted to piggyback on that traffic circle that Chair Brooks mentioned that was in the works before I came on board. And I am one of those who's doing the happy dance because I think that is a great traffic calming solution for that area. And I'm glad to see it there. Secondly, what I wanted to do is mention that I attended the Parks at Main Street annual meeting. It was so great to meet so many of our local business owners, and I just wanted to celebrate somebody I consider to be like a community hero in that person of Edwin Washington, because he's doing so much to keep our small business community supported and keeping them, he's like a glue in a sense to me that keeps them together. So I was happy to be part of that and to see all the good work they're doing. Finally, the Lamont Rig Safety Group, some of you may be familiar with that. There is a nuisance issue in our community because it pertains to a certain part of the community. This isn't for everyone. If you're part of the community where that nuisance issue is, I want to say, like the kids say, if you know, you know. And you also will receive a flyer this week informing you about a safety meeting that we're having this Saturday, June 1st. So if you receive a flyer, that means this issue is within your community, and we encourage you to come out. I am a co-sponsor of that event, and so I'll be there as we talk about it. I know Jeanette Berry is kind of smiling there because I think initially we thought it was in her single member district, but we found out it is in 4B09. So yes, be on the lookout for information for those events. Thank you.
All right, 4B10.
Yeah, I was going to mention also the Lamont Riggs Public Safety Group. So at first I was talking to them about that issue. It is in your S&D, but I think I'd probably still come to the meeting because I was talking to them, Rodney Foxworth, quite a bit before they came up with the meeting. And I think that's about it. Mostly residents have been talking about safety and asking about safety. I just came out of the Lamont Community Action Group meeting, and we had Officer Henrik there. So hopefully we'll have more. He said, "Come to coffee with a cop." They're gonna have a virtual meeting They have it every second Tuesday, and then Friday 31st they'll have the bonfires at 6001 Georgia Avenue. So that sounds great, and they have commanders walk like every week. So anybody who's concerned about safety, I encourage you to get involved in a lot of the different activities and things that MPD provides. No, that's it.
All right, thank you very much. And we keep going down the agenda. Let me get to it while we're talking. Anybody that wants to prompt me is welcome to do so, because it's taking a second.
Well,
Community,
while you're looking for that, Chair, I just want to go back and say, yes, thank you to DDOT and for the residents in the 500 block of Blair who requested speed humps, and now they have them. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I have the agenda open, so thank you for that. So next on our list would be community concerns. You can use the raise your hand function and you'll be called on, or you can dial *9 if you're on the phone and we'll acknowledge you. I guess we'll begin with Jocelyn Johnson. Jocelyn? Yeah. Jocelyn?
She's unmuted, Chair Brooks.
I see. Jocelyn? We can't hear you, dear. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next person. If anyone else has their hand, has another question and wants to raise their hand, we'll acknowledge them. Go to Tanya Hutchins, please. Hi, Tanya. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, I just
Hi.
unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, yeah, I put my question in the chat. I heard
Mhm.
you mention the light on New Hampshire Avenue that's coming, and I'm so glad that's coming. I was just wondering what effect that was going to have on Oglethorpe Street traffic, because our traffic in the morning between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. it's
Mhm.
completely backed up from New Hampshire Avenue to 3rd Street. So we already have trouble getting out of our driveways. So I'm thinking once the traffic stops on New Hampshire Avenue, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it'll get worse.
So we were told at that when we looked at the survey, we were told then that we couldn't have a stoplight at Oglethorpe. And then it's really an enforcement issue. And MPD is on the call tonight, and perhaps they can address that. The people on New Hampshire Avenue are preventing you from getting out of the.
Yeah, and then that backs up the traffic all the way to 3rd. I don't have a
Absolutely.
driveway, but my neighbor across the street, sometimes the people don't even let her out of her driveway, and you
Yep.
can't make a U-turn. I can't turn around.
Yep. I
But
absolutely
perhaps
understand that. I personally, I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. I was just gonna say, I absolutely understand that. I personally have a driveway and have that same issue during rush hour traffic. But go
yeah,
ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, perhaps some traffic direction would help at Oglethorpe, even if it's just during rush hour, like just somebody to direct traffic to let people out.
Mhm.
I know that was successful at South Dakota and Riggs for a while in the mornings when I used to drive that way.
Unfortunately, Chick-fil-A paid for that and not the city.
Oh,
And we
darn.
couldn't get the city to continue that. So I don't know that we'd be able to get traffic control officers at that
Oh no,
intersection.
that was before Chick-fil-A was even there.
Okay, the last ones that
Yeah.
were there, I'm remembering were from Chick-fil-A, but if you mean before that,
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
But I'm happy to make the request. I just don't know what will come of it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I should have said this in advance of calling on residents, but we do not call on residents that do not fully identify themselves with a first and a last name. And so if your phone or your Zoom account does not identify you fully, unfortunately, we won't call on you. Jocelyn Johnson, are we doing this again? Can you be heard this time? You're on mute. Okay, we can't keep doing this all night, Jocelyn. If you want to, you can call in on your phone, or you can type your question in the chat and we can read it.
The Q&A function, Chair Brooks, please. Q&A.
Oh, yes, Q&A function. All right. Okay, we're gonna move on. All right. H. Garner, I don't know who that is. and it's not a full name. But they did raise their hand. So Commissioner Yates, how do you want to proceed?
They're allowed to talk now.
Okay. Hello?
They just have to unmute themselves.
Mm-hmm. H. Garner, if you unmute, then you'd be able to ask your question.
Hi, it's
Hi.
Holly. Sorry, I'm
Holly.
having trouble signing in.
No worries.
I've just been trying for almost a year now to get the broken fence at the Tacoma Dog Park fixed from when the trees fell last July.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little bit of repair recently within the last 3 weeks. 2 posts were reset in concrete. So we
Mhm.
all got excited that it was happening, but now it has just stalled. Nothing else has happened. And there's a pile of rolled up fencing and broken poles sitting in the grass on the other side of the fence for pretty much any resident to get injured on. So I just wanted to see if there was an update on that. I've been trying all angles of complaints and proactive questions, and I'm getting a lot of conflicting answers as to why that fence hasn't been repaired. So if anybody has an update on that, that would be awesome.
Well, I know DGS is here, so that was one of my questions for him regarding an update on the timeline when that fence would be repaired. So perhaps when Mr. Hunter comes in, then we'll get some answers.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Holly, do you have a 311 request? Have you ever entered a 311 request for that area?
Yeah. Yes, I've had several. Some
would-
have been deleted, some have been stalled. Yeah.
It would be useful if you emailed those to Commissioner Smith.
Sure, I can do that.
He could then forward them to DGS after that. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move into our first report, which would be Commander Labenhouse from Metropolitan Police.
Okay, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you
Wanted to
for
go over
joining us.
briefly, of course, no problem. I guess I'll start with the crime stats for over the last month for 4B. So we had a total of 64 crimes within 40 over the last month. Majority of those crimes were property crimes. So 56 of those were property crimes. We did have the one homicide up on Blair. We had one sex abuse incident. We had 5 assaults with dangerous weapons, 1 robbery. And like I said, going into our property crimes, we had 1 burglary, 13 thefts from autos, 31 thefts, and 8 motor vehicle thefts. If I could, I really just want to really talk about those 31 thefts. Majority of those are coming from the CVS. I know Commissioner Reese spoke about it a little bit earlier, some of the incidents going over there, but I did want to say that our crime suppression team has been doing theft operations throughout the district, and we've made quite a bit of arrest during those retail theft operations. The management over there has been very helpful with us, making sure that we're getting whatever footage is needed to make sure that they go forward with prosecution. Additionally, with the theft, we do have an individual who has been arrested multiple times throughout the district for theft, specifically package thefts, not too many of the businesses, but package thefts. Our community prosecutor has reached out for some assistance with a community impact statement. So I can definitely get it to you, Commissioner Brooks, to see if we can work together to do that community impact statement. He has been arrested so many times for thefts. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, it was for theft too. So he would be in jail. He'd rather take the jail time. So he'd go to jail for 30 days or so and then come right back out. And we're right back in the same situation where he is the suspect for these multiple thefts. So he is definitely, or was definitely, one of the individuals driving up our theft numbers for some time. Still looking at other crimes to see if there's anything else that we may have to tie him to based on suspect description. But because there have been so many cases, the courts have decided to go through with a felony theft case. So they're going to go ahead and aggravate all those cases into one felony theft charge. So that is someone that has definitely been driving up our numbers when it comes to theft. Theft from autos. So it has been an increase in this specific area. This is not the only area, but still compared to last year, this time it's still down. But we do recognize that we did have some recently in the area. Things that were taken during that spree that we had, or that weekend. Purses with money in them, wallet. So people are still leaving items in the car. That was a lot of it. Purses and laptop bags with laptops still in it. So work items are still being left in the vehicle. Some of them visible, some hidden, behind the seat. You put the seat back a little bit to try to hide it. But still the bag was seen, or the purse was seen, and items were taken. In addition to that, we did see some of the work vehicles, so tools. That was some of the ones that we saw. So they did target work vehicles. There's really, to be transparent, nothing really, I think, with the tools in the work vehicles, any way to get around it besides our presence and visibility. So in those areas, we're going ahead and making sure that we're in those places to combat that activity. But then with the other items, it's just not leaving them visible. I think that was pretty much what I had, besides any specific questions that you have about the crimes that I talked about.
I'll just start by adding this for everyone else because I didn't include it in my update. I met with the regional manager of the CVS today, along with Commissioner Johnson, and we were trying to find ways to address dumping in that parking lot, as well as some of the other concerns that we had with regard to CVS's showing up as a better neighbor. So in that vein, I contacted the commander to ask if there was a way to get a crime camera or something to record the dumping that's going on in that area. So that's the backstory for everybody else. Commissioner Palmer, do you have a question you want to raise?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commander Levenhouse, for being here. There have been some recent kind of more high profile incidents because they have involved guns and deaths, but there has also been a fair amount of misinformation about what happened, particularly on social media. And I'm wondering if you can give some guidance as to where we and residents should be looking for accurate information about what has happened when there's an incident.
So first and foremost, I think I've been very present and clear that you can always email me anytime that there is Any concerns or something that needs to be clarified, myself as well as the captains and the inspector, we make sure that we are available. We will definitely give you whatever information that we can, give you without jeopardizing the investigation. So that's first and foremost. You can always contact us. We do, I will say that we have been doing better at placing things on Nextdoor, where that's the platform that the department has been trying to move to besides the listserv. There were some things going on with the Google groups and all of that, and I don't really have all of the details for that. And I think my camera is okay, camera's up. But there's were some issues going on with the Google group. So we are still posting on there. The inspector still has access to that. So he has been intentional, I'll say the last couple of weeks of now that he has access, posting things on that listserv group. But Nextdoor and listserv is really where we're trying to focus that information. But the team and I are definitely available to answer those questions.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Commander Levenhouse. I wanted to follow up on the issue of the Tacoma Park 4th of July parade, which was forced to pull out of 4B04 last year because of new and additional, I think they said, onerous requirements by MPD for the half a block they come into the District of Columbia. I was wondering if there'd been any progress in permitting that parade to make sure that they would be able to return to their traditional route.
I spoke to the council member's office. I know there was some conversation that you all had about that, and I filled in her chief of staff actually on Friday at my niece's graduation. But yeah, so basically what occurred prior to me coming to the 4th district, it wasn't that they were forced to change the route. They chose to change the route. So I was able to see my colleagues over at the Special Operations Division. They allowed me to look at the email chain for that. So they were holding the parade, and I guess the previous commander, a couple of commanders ago, and before that were able to, and I want everyone to remember where our staffing was at that time. They were able to go ahead and provide officers to handle that. The issue is, I guess last year, prior to me arriving at the 4th district, the event was flagged. So there is a mayor's task group or an events task group that every event where streets need to be closed, any festivals, any type of events, they have to go through that permitting process. That involves the special operations events team. So it's not out of the 4th district. Looking at the email chain, it was flagged last year that this event had been occurring and it wasn't approved to be occurring within the District of Columbia. The event organizer was provided the information. They were rushed through the process initially to be able to be brought in front of the task group for that next business day. And once they were told that these are the requirements for shutting down a street in the District of Columbia, they decided to not go through with that process and to change their route. That's the email chain that I read. I did follow up with my colleagues, Commander Bagshaw over at SOD, as well as he was a lieutenant at the time, Lieutenant Porter, he's now a captain over events, who basically reiterated everything in that email chain between them with the organizer. The organizer has been advised of the same process. They would help them and go through it so that they can return to, the original route that they had through the district, but they have to go through that process, and it has nothing to do with the 4th district. My concern with it, if I'm able to be transparent with, okay, well, I'll just pull from my staffing and do it, is kind of what we saw a couple of weeks ago with Petworth Porch Fest. That wasn't something that a street was going to be shut down. And we had a vehicle that, because they said that it would just be up on the sidewalk. The crowd grew larger than just the sidewalk, and the vehicles trying to get out of their driveway and ended up trying to traverse the crowd while people were in the street. We don't want that to happen, and that's why processes and policies are put in place for that reason. So that's kind of where we are. I spoke to the chief of staff at the councilwoman's office, and she said she would touch base with them and help them go through that process, but it's all written out and the team is ready and willing to help them go through that. But that's kind of the process, and it doesn't fall within the 4th district.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up because I was actually copied on their application this year and their request for an SOD meeting. I was copied on it. I didn't see a reply come to that thread. So I'm following up here because it went into the void. And as far as I can tell from the email thread that I'm on, that includes their request for a meeting. And I would also just say that, like, it's, it's a half a block of the District of Columbia, that they come into the District of Columbia. It's well staffed by the Tacoma Park Police Department. They've always had cruisers right there at the border, as someone who's seen, and it's been ongoing for decades. Literally, decades and decades. It's not just the commander prior, it's, decades of precedent around this. And so I think, first of all, I would appreciate being looped in if they ever actually did respond to the parade organizers, because the email that I'm CC'd on is several weeks old by now. And then the other thing I would also just say is that, like, it seems, just that this practice has been able to continue for decades, and it has to be changed in the last year for a half block. When like things like
I
the
don't think that's what she
Petworth Forest
said,
Fest.
Commissioner
What?
Yates. That's not what I heard her say.
Okay.
You're asking her to respond to something what she just said wasn't under her purview. And two,
Well,
because someone's been doing something that they shouldn't be doing doesn't mean they should get to continue to do it
I'm just gonna
without
say
going
that,
through the
like,
proper process.
that's very well. I'm CC'd on an email that went out weeks ago without a response from MPD. So
That I can't respond
I
to.
can take responsibility. I can take responsibility for MPD being an MPD commander. However, it doesn't fall under my purview. I can talk to my colleagues who we meet with daily and see, make sure that he reaches out to you, but that's going to be with our special operations division.
Commissioner Yates.
if it's not under her purview, I guess I'll try and track down Lieutenant Bagshaw.
Commander, who did you say was the appropriate contact? Did I hear you say Captain Porter?
So it's Commander Bagshaw is the commander of the Special Operations Division. However, Captain Porter, Nathaniel Porter, who's on the email chain, he is over the events section as well as a member on the mayor's events task group that this has to go before. It has to be approved by the task group.
Okay. Commissioner Yates. Good.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Commissioner Colson.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. Good evening, Commander Lavenhouse. Thank you again for your presence and for your team support, both physically present and responding to emails. I just wanted to follow up and check on the status of the mobile camera trailers. I know that up here on Blair, the roads and the sidewalks are very narrow, but I do want to elevate once again that during the walk, many constituents raised concerns about activity in the alley and around this same block that many have said have been historical. So is there an update on where we possibly can get that trailer?
Yes, so we do have 2 mobile camera trailers that are assigned to the district. We do rotate them at need or instance, and this is something that it definitely needs to be rotated in. One is currently being serviced. It's not working. Unfortunately, when we put them in different places, they're
I'm not sure. Did she freeze or is that just my computer?
She froze.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll give her a second and see if she pops back.
Sometimes it's helpful to turn off the camera. That can restore the connection if she wants to try that.
Looks like nope, she's still here. Commander Levenhouse, can you hear us? I believe that Officer Hamrick is on the call, at least he was earlier. Perhaps we can elevate him.
I'm back. It kicked
You're
me
back?
off. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So we do have 2 mobile cameras. Unfortunately, one of them is currently down. When we put them in certain areas, they do get vandalized. So the one that we do have is in an area that historically, if I move it, there will be a shooting. So it's just trying to get the other one fixed. As soon as we can get it fixed, we'll work on getting it to that area.
Is there,
We did have
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
In addition to that, we did have officers in the area. As soon as we received your email over the weekend, we made sure that we had officers out there through the duration of the night, kind of shut down the alley and monitor that activity. I did hear that Officer Hamrick was on here. He did text me when I kind of got kicked out, but I do want to make sure that I give him his kudos for he was one of the officers that was out there and was able to talk to the individuals to kind of talk them down since they are not necessarily police friendly. I will say where we are with that without being able to go into too much because it is an open investigation or an ongoing investigation, that we are trying to work on that issue with multiple different ways. So with a multi-government agency approach, and I know we say that a lot, but trying to make sure that we get to the homeowner is kind of the issue right now. So I've asked some of our agency partners to assist me with that communication away from the property so that we can hopefully that homeowner is more open to police engagement than the individuals that seem to be the problem. But it's something that we're definitely working on in that area.
Okay, thank you so much for that. What I was going to ask is there a plan B while the other trailer is being repaired?
It's the officers. It's that increased patrols around that area and the engagement of those individuals when we see them gathering in that alley. So just like you did, if any of the community members see that increased activity, please reach out and let us know like you did that night so that we can get over there and make sure that we get a handle on it. In the meantime, hopefully our presence will deter a lot of that activity, and understand that we're also with that extending it outside of just that particular street. So 2 blocks in each direction that night when we heard that they were back there to deter anyone from coming into the neighborhood and causing any problems. So we have an entire contingency plan when we see that gathering that the team is to go to.
Thank you very much. And yes, I also would like to say thank you to Officer Hamrick. He's been great. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Johnson.
Good evening, Commander. I just wanted to say thank you again for the light trailer at the intersection in the 5900 block of 4th Street Northwest. It was just recently repaired, and the light is now once again facing into residents' homes. So if that could be fixed. Also, some of the residents have actually said that they feel that we no longer need that light in that area because the wattage of the street lights has been increased. So if possible, if you could move that light and provide it to Commissioner Colson, perhaps, since it's working now.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go ahead and definitely repurpose the light. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation. I know that you had a conflict tonight as well with another meeting, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here, I should say.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you.
Alrighty, I'm assuming, by the way, that there are no other questions because there are no other hands raised. All right, have a great evening. Be safe.
Thank you.
Okay, next we would have Sophia Tacola from the Mayor's Office on Community Relations and Services.
Chair Brooks, I'm
Mhm.
promoting one Sophia Tacola. There are two Sophia Tacolas in the list. So if I have the wrong one, whoever I promoted, the one that's labeled Mokers, please
Mhm.
let me know. But I hope Sophia Tacola Mokers is the right Sophia Tacola.
I would hope so.
They're not joining, so I'm going to try the other one now. Oh no, here we
Okay.
declined to be promoted, so I'm going to try the other Sophia Tacola now.
Okay.
All Sophia Tacola impersonators, please
Mhm.
sign.
Hi, sorry about that. For
No.
whatever reason, my Wi-Fi kept kicking me off. So in a backup in case it kicked me off, I have my phone ready to go. But thank you. So I'm going to make this quick because I know we have a lot to go through today. Starting off with tomorrow is one of our absolute biggest events for our seniors, which is our big senior fest. It will take place at the UDC campus starting at 10 a.m. going all the way to 3 p.m. So if you know any seniors that want to do some line dancing, get a bunch of fun free goodies, food, all sorts of stuff like that, definitely tell them to come to UDC from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. In addition to that, pools and splash parks are officially open, so take great advantage of that. I've definitely gone around our area and seen some kids getting a lot of fun in the sun, as well as other individuals. And then a big reminder is with all of our summer programming, dprprograms.com or dpr.dc.gov is a great place to find out where you want your children to go, or there's also a new program for adults that will be starting up soon of an adult camp for the summer. And so to learn more about all of that, go to dprprograms.com. I was on the website today and I saw that there are some summer camps that are still open. So if you are in that final stretch or you know of a neighbor that's in that final stretch wanting a place for their child to go to for the summer to be safe, definitely check out dprprograms.com, or you can also go to dpr.dc.gov. And as a reminder, this weather, it was pretty nice today with a couple of showers, but it's going to continue to get hot. Recently over by the Safeway on Tuckerman in Georgia area, I saw an individual who had been living outside almost all of last week. And so we were able to get her some support. She wanted to get into a shelter. But for those of you who do not know, when it gets too hot, there's a lot of resources, and a great phone number to have is the DC Shelter Hotline. I'll put it in the chat, but for everybody's ears, that is the phone number for DC Shelter Hotline is 202-399-7093, or the Mayor's Citywide Call Center at 311. And you can give them a call for 311 and be like, hey, it's really hot. We have an individual, in my case, it was a senior, in 80-degree weather. And so if you want to get them support or have DMHHS or DHS come out, we can do that if they want it. Obviously, if they are comfortable where they are at, they're comfortable where they are at. But if it gets too hot, they need water and stuff like that. We want to make sure that everybody in DC is safe and not getting heat stroke, which also includes animals. As a reminder, we have our HRA, our Humane Rescue Alliance, that does a lot of support, as well as check-ins with animals, and I can give that contact in the chat as well if you have a neighbor. I know earlier this year we've had a few different animal concerns, and so if you know of somebody who, say, maybe their dog's outside all day and it's super hot, there is a phone number for that as well. But yes, so tomorrow, definitely have all the seniors come out, and reminder to check out dprprograms.com. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner Palmer?
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. It's a joy to have the pools open. I'm thrilled. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the dress code, because at one of the pools I was at this weekend, there was, I don't know, a mandate that people on the deck be only in swim attire, not be wearing anything, any covers or like sweatpants or jeans or anything. And I understand that there's some requirements around wearing swim clothes in the pool, but that seemed a little bit peculiar to me, particularly as a woman who sometimes wants to be covered. So I'm wondering if you can tell everyone what the rules are for what people need to be wearing at the pool.
Yes, I can find the rules on the website, but then also flag that for DPR. I haven't had that question come up before, so I definitely appreciate it, especially I know a lot of people want to dress more modestly and not necessarily be in swim attire, so I can definitely relate to that, but I'll get that answer to you.
All right, Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the cooling center list since you brought it up. I know there were issues at the beginning of warming center season, that some of the shelter lists were outdated, and that there'd been some contraction in the number of lists of shelters that were available during the winter. Do we know, is the list updated and current, and what are the closest ones in 4B?
Yes. Bear with me 1 second. I'm bringing up the chat for everybody about. So the way for you guys to find this, for those who might not know, you can go to hcema.dc.gov and it will have all of your emergency plan information. So I'm putting in the chat right now the information for all of that. Once again, my apologies. My Wi-Fi is very slow right now. But there is an interactive map. It just loaded. And so when you click on it, it will take you to those arcgis.com sites where you can put in your address and see where the closest thing is for you. So here, let me add that link to share with everybody on this call as well.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that, and I guess like every spray park is listed as a cooling center, right, on that map. Like, so I just making sure that, like, you know, we're that it's up to date, and also knowing the issues that happen around the winter list to make sure the list is current. So like basically the closest actual cooling centers to R would be Lamond when it's open, right? And Hattie
Your
Holmes probably.
centers,
What?
as well as your recreation centers, so your Tacoma, LaSalle Rigs, things like that. But I'm so sorry. I do not know why my service is so bad today. But I also know that we thankfully have the director of BGS on this call today that might be able to share a little bit more about those cooling center locations. And then you are also able to call that shelter hotline number 311 for, or sorry, not shelter hotline, 311 for cooling centers as well.
Okay, Commissioner Gilligan?
Hello, Sophia. Thanks for joining. I was just looking at the HCMA website and noticed they don't have anything really on there about air quality. You know, last year we had the Canadian wildfires and horrible air quality that's likely to happen again and in the future. So I'm just curious if you know about or can provide information later on about what the plans are for the DC government with respect to preparedness for low air quality, alerting folks, getting city workers protection is necessary. They're outdoors a lot, air purification systems in classrooms, like that kind of thing. Just, you don't have to answer now, but I'm interested in that kind of information later.
Absolutely. And I can share with HCMA as a reminder, because we have all the heating, cooling, different things like that on their Homeland Security and emergency management page, to also have the air purification if, heaven forbid, we have fires. Last year, what happened, HCMA did put out alerts. We also posted on social media, the news also posted, as well as on listservs, group, what's it called, neighborhood group pages and things like that. But one of the big things is, for everybody, as a reminder, you can sign up for alerts with alerts.dc.gov that will let you know, like, hey, humidity is really bad today, air quality is bad, or it's super hot. And when it gets to those super extreme heats, all of these different opportunities for support open up with our heat emergency plan as well. So definitely a reminder, sign up for alerts.dc.gov.
And also, thank you for continuing on the trash can issue. I appreciate the efforts.
Of course, sorry about that.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised, so we will move on to the
Awesome.
next
Thank you for having me.
presentation. Thank you. Barbara Rogers from the Ward 4 Council Member's Office.
You all hear me?
Yes.
I'm trying to, okay, there I am. Hello, how are you all?
Oh, good, and you?
Good. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening to the community. And I just have a few updates because I know Chair Brooks has started the timer. So the first update, which I think we all have heard about, is the WMATA's Better Bus Network proposal. We just want to remind you that this proposal is open for public comment until July 15th. This proposal contains dozens of changes that will impact Ward 4, including major revisions, several important bus routes that members of our community use every day. We had a list of those in our last week's newsletter, but we also want to mention that over 50 Ward 4 bus stops could be eliminated. So we want to encourage residents, we want to encourage our commissioners to actually make your voices heard on this issue. Our office wanted to thank the commander and also thank Commissioner Colson. Council member was able to join that MPD walk up on Blair. So we wanted to just thank you all, and we will continue to work together on to keep our community safe. Let me see what else I had here. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the budget. I want to talk a little bit about our Ward 4 wins. I think most of you all know there will be a first vote that will happen tomorrow on the council at 11 o'clock. But some of our Ward 4 wins will be The council member won a $2 million investment to bring library resources space to Kennedy Street. Access to books and other library resources will help families, and district neighborhoods are already within walking distance of a library. So this will help residents in Brightwood Park and Manor Park. Council member is also proud to have invested $1 million to replace the playground at Lamont Recreation Center. We do want to thank Commissioner Cohen and Terry Goen for their advocacy on this issue. So thanks again for that, Commissioner Cohen. And we'll have almost $500,000 to renovate the locker rooms at Tacoma Aquatic Center. Again, these investments will bring modern recreational facilities to our Ward 4 communities. Again, the council member is grateful that this budget protects the $18 million for Whittier modular swing space, which will keep our students in our neighborhoods. A few more wins that we want to, some of the committee wins, $1 million to support the maintenance across the Department of General Services full portfolio. Fully restoring $70 million to early childhood education pay fund. Fully restoring access to justice to 31.7 million this year. And again, all of these things are wins, and we are hope that they will pass and go through both votes. But we just wanted to share some of the wins. The council member has been fighting and advocating very hard for our ward. And then finally, if you don't get our newsletter, please go to our website to join and get our newsletter, which comes out every Friday afternoon. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have a question? Commissioner Colson?
Good evening, Ms. Rogers.
Hi, Commissioner.
I just thought about this, and I actually could have asked Sophia as well. And if you don't have an answer, that's okay. As we are now at the beginning of storm season, rain, hurricanes, what have you, what can we proactively do in terms of trees that are so big and old here in Ward 4? Is there any program that the city has where there's some pre-trimming or anything done? Because I know last time we lost a few major trees. That was a major issue for constituents in this area. So if you know of anything, please let me know and I can pass that on. But I would hate for us to get into the middle of it and then we lose power and just have trees down all over the place.
I definitely will. I know that Casey Trees does provide some services, but I'll get with our CS team and I'll send you a list of resources that we have. But
Yeah,
that's a great question, great concern.
Yeah, I remember looking at KC previously, and I know that they support with planting, but I know, to my knowledge, they don't really touch trees unless they have to remove them because they're dead. But just preventative measures will be appreciated.
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, since the chairman's budget came out today, if there were specific things that the council member was targeting for an amendment coming into this budget process, right? We're in a period with less than like 24 hours here where we've seen the mayor's budget, we've seen the chairman's proposed budget. Is Councilmember Lewis George looking to move any amendments in this period to changes she wants to see made?
That would be a good question for our legislative team. And I am not sure if Will Perkins, is he on?
He is.
Will Perkins can answer that question.
Good evening, 4B. Can you hear me?
We can. Hello, how are you?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, hi, how you doing? Thank you, Barbara. To Commissioner Yates's question, no. We have Councilman Louis George has successfully got with the chairman to incorporate a number of changes into this draft. The list escapes me at the moment, but I don't anticipate any specific amendments from us tomorrow. There's been 5 or 6 circulated in the last couple hours, so we're still evaluating those. But further, I think we do have some changes we are exploring with our agencies for the second reading. So I think there's some tweaks we're making to some subtitles we introduced ourselves. So probably nothing tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other
Thanks,
questions?
Will.
I don't see any other questions.
Thank you all for having me.
You're welcome. I just want to make sure residents understand, because the last couple of meetings, residents have not raised their hands to ask a question. And so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure everyone understands that residents have the right to use the raise your hand function and ask questions of the district agencies as well, just in case for some reason that's unclear. So with that, we can keep going. And I believe the next presentation is by Fraser O'Leary, DC State Board of Education. Also, if residents have questions, they can put them in the Q&A, which I did mention before. And while we're waiting, I will say that Sophia Takula posted that there was one big reminder she neglected to share. Tacoma Station will be closed for the month of June, and there'll be shuttles to take residents to other stations. I can move that link. She also provided a link for the trees as well.
Good evening. I'll jump right in.
Oh, before you start, let me just say one more thing. I'm not a host, so I can't share those messages, Commissioner Palmer. Okay, go ahead, Mr. O'Leary. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. On the 15th of May, we passed the social emotional learning standards. Those were the 5th group of standards that we passed in the last 2 years, which from my time, 6 years on the board, is like a world's record. I don't remember us passing 2 standards in the preceding years at all. So it has to do with our relationship with OSSI, I think. And I think I mentioned to you last time that Dr. Christina Grant is going to open up a department at Harvard University. She will be leaving at the end of June. And I hope that the mayor chooses someone that was as supportive of the education in the city as Dr. Grant was. The budget's been mentioned. And Whittier was a big win for our community, because without the community's support, there's no way in the world that the mayor would have budgeted $17 million for the swing space at the Whittier. It's going to be the Whittier Village. One thing that we can applaud that and be really happy about it, but the students and the faculty and the rest of the staff are going to be in the old building for 2 more years. That was part of the budget. So we need to make sure that, and you can ask Director Hunter later on about it, because I know they had a lot to do, excuse me, with us getting Whittier. We need to make sure that in August and for the next 2 years that the students and staff and teachers are in a safe, comfortable, and secure building. And we need to make sure that we, and I will continue to advocate for that. Let me put it that way. I've mentioned the teacher's contract. There's been no movement towards a new teacher's contract And the teachers have been working now since the 1st of October without a contract. And we're coming up on the end of school next month. And Chancellor, who's the mayor's appointee, there has been no movement with DCPS and the teachers union on the contract. And that's a real crime as far as I'm concerned. Two other things. On Thursday night at the Petworth Library, we will be talking about Toni Morrison's novel Home. That's the next to last novel in her whole collection of works. And it's at 6 o'clock at the Petworth Library if you'd like to come and join us to talk about the novel. Next month will be the last book. And speaking of books, Mrs. O'Leary's Books for Friends is still collecting books. We're over 40,000 collected and distributed in Ward 4 for the last 4 years. But we want to collect a whole lot of books in the next couple of weeks so we can go to all the schools and deliver books, elementary and middle school books. And Miss Johnson will lead you to my house, which is at 1318 Farragut Street. And I'll put my information in the chat if I can. I think I can get into the chat now. Maybe not. I don't see it on.
Should be able to.
Okay, I don't see the icon for chat. I don't know why. Maybe it's under more. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'll put my information in the chat.
All right, you
And
can only do it as long as you're a panelist, so you need to do it now before you get off. Otherwise, you
yeah,
won't
I
have.
know I clicked it, but it wouldn't let me in. But my number is 202-236-2184. And my email address is real simple, oman9, OMAN, the number 9 at AOL.com. You remember that. And I'm at 1318 Farragut, right across the street from John Lewis Elementary. And I did forget, but now I remembered that Friday night is a performance of Willy Wonka at John Lewis Elementary. And you can get tickets online for $4 a head. So that's my commercial for John Lewis. I see that Mr. Yates has a question.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Yates.
Yeah, since you raised the issue of the Whittier swing space, I haven't been able to find an answer to the question of what happens with LaSalle, which was supposed to follow into the Sharp swing space sequentially after Whittier. Does the Whittier delay mean that the LaSalle delay is also a year, or do they move forward into the Whittier slot? And if so, do they get a local modular swing space, or do they still have to go to Sharp, which is even further for them?
They don't, the last time I talked to Principal Gray was they don't want to go up to the Whittier's. We had talked about swing space, but they would like to stay on their campus for that. So that's something that we need to, we got 2 years left. They're not going to be moving until, Truesdale is moving to Sharpell School when school ends. So Truesdale will be there for at least a year. But that's a great question that's never been asked before. I'll find out.
Yeah, because
I
they're supposed
also
to go
wonder-
Truesdale, Whittier, LaSalle, Bacchus in the Sharp space. And if Whittier is no longer going, does it mean that, but now that Whittier's a year later, so they can build the modulars, does that mean that the renovation for LaSalle Bacchus is also a year delayed?
Before you answer that, let me add, can I piggyback to your question and say, to me, there's an equity issue here because every school wants to stay in their backyard. And for whatever reason, Truesdale is not inside the 4B boundary. So I can't speak to why ultimately they weren't allowed to, but it pretty much feels like the squeaky wheel got the grease versus being concerned about the transportation for those kids. So is that something that you can consider as well when looking at this, because I can guarantee you that Riggs LaSalle students don't want to go to Sharp if they don't have to. How come the Whittier kids don't have to? They shouldn't.
Well,
None
no,
of them should have to. Let me rephrase. Let me phrase it differently. I'm not upset that Whittier gets to stay. I'm going to advocate for Riggs LaSalle to get to stay as well.
no, I agree with you, but it has to be. See, as far as I'm concerned, the reason Whittier finally convinced the mayor to do what they did is because of the community. So that was what did it, as far as I'm concerned. That was like democracy in action. So I think that would have to happen. Truesdale was on the list before Whittier, and Truesdale is half of Truesdale. If you don't know, is already at Sharp Hill.
Mm-hmm.
The younger children are already at Sharp. They've already torn down half of Truesdale, as you know, this year. So but that's a good question about the modular schools, because that hasn't come up yet. That's the first time I've heard anyone talk about that. I never thought about it. I guess because I was focused on Whittier and the community, because we knew that LaSalle Bacchus was the last school to be modernized in Ward 4. But we need to make sure that that Whittier and LaSalle Bacchus are both kept up to par for the rest of the time that they're in those buildings. Because Sharp Health, and because I don't live too far from that, Sharp Health is in much better shape than Whittier right now. And it's been a swing space for a lot of schools already. And I know you remember we went at Cardozo, when I was at Cardozo, we left Cardozo, which was the oldest building in the world, and went to Meyer Elementary, and we were at Meyer Elementary for a year and a half as a high school. But it was much more comfortable than Cardozo. Any other questions?
Don't see any.
All right, well, I tried to get into the chat, but it said it was blank.
If you put it in the Q&A, we'll cut and paste it. Oh, there is a question in the Q&A. Would LaSalle Bacchus use the Whittier trailers as its swing space?
That's a question that I'm sure Mr. Hunter would have more answers than I. That's a whole lot closer to LaSalle Bacchus than Sharp Health is.
It's also the school that they would go to when they leave LaSalle Bacchus if they're going to Ida B. Wells, basically.
Exactly.
Right.
That would be ideal. But be honest with you, it didn't come up in the conversation when we were talking to DGS, when we were talking to the mayor, when we were testifying in front of the city council.
I would argue that LaSalle Bacchus doesn't have a parent association at all, right? So they don't have anyone there in those conversations arguing on their behalf in the way that the Whittier parent body was able to advocate. They might not even be aware, for all I know.
They know, but I agree with you as far as an active PTA, PTO, whatever you want to call it, is extraordinarily helpful. And politicians do listen when people are screaming.
During election season.
We were screaming. Whittier, as you know, I've mentioned Whittier for the last 3 years at every meeting I've come to. And I'm not saying I didn't do it, but I know a lot of other people did. And they were on TV. You got to use the Washington Post. You got to use the TV channels and all that social media stuff that y'all know about. That's what got it done. And it was a big cheer. But we also have to make sure that Whittier is comfortable and safe for the next 2 years because they're going to be in that same building. And you know that they had a burst pipe just a month ago that messed up 3 rooms of the school. So, because it's old. I mean, those, Whittier's moving on to being 100 years old.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're going to move on
Sure.
to our committee updates and start with the Housing Justice Committee.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I will keep this brief. The Housing Justice Committee last met May 1st. That was our May meeting where we had a discussion with and presentation from the DC Office of the Tenant Advocate on tenant rights and housing assistance. We also had a chat with the proprietor of Rhizome, which is a local arts space within our commission area, on a piece of land that is being redeveloped. This has been ongoing for several years. There is an item on our agenda talking about the current status of that property and some of the commission's history there. We will next meet on Tuesday, June 4th. This is a 1-day change in our normal meeting time. We're meeting on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Tuesday, June 4th at 7:30, the same time we meet virtually. All of that information is on the commission's website, and we will hopefully be hearing from the Office of Tax and Revenue about Commissioner Johnson's proposed resolution about senior tax relief. And we will be continuing to work in preparation of the committee's housing tenant resource fair, which is planned for July 14th at MLK Library. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Yates, if you could give a Vision Zero committee update.
Sure. The Vision Zero committee meeting was held on May 15th. We had a presentation from DDOT's permitting office about permitting coordination through their work. I can tell you right now, we have not scheduled the next Vision Zero committee meeting. It will not be held at our usual date and time because it coincides with the Juneteenth holiday. Coincidentally, so we'll announce the new date and time once we have it scheduled.
All right, thank you. Youth Advisory Committee met. Commissioner Palmer, why don't you give that update? Or would you prefer that I do it?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
We held a meeting on May 19th, an in-person meeting with our youth members of the Youth Advisory Committee. We had a pizza party. We talked to them about their interests. We learned a little bit more about them. It was a really great meeting. We are teasing out their availability and ability to meet, whether that's in person or virtually. We have tentatively scheduled our next meeting for June 22nd, a virtual meeting, and we have invited the council member to participate in that meeting.
Yes, we did. Community safety and support.
Good evening. I am happy to report that we have 2 proposed committee members, Charles Linton, who is a resident of ANC 4B05, and Ro Brooks, who is a resident of 4B04. So hopefully we will be able to begin having regular meetings starting in June. We in the past have met on the 3rd Thursday of the month. So I'm looking to our next meeting being on June 20th, and that will be posted on our website and as well as my social media platforms.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will move to our first presentation by Director Delano Hunter from the Department of General Services, who will be discussing Mayor Bowser's fiscal year 2025 budget proposal. Also, can you promote Shalice Grove as well. She'll be, I think, responsible for the PowerPoint.
All right, that's right. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
We can.
All
Welcome.
right. Thank you so much. And Shalice Grove, again, she's going to join me. She'll have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll share. So I'll just pause a moment until she is promoted.
Okay.
You all is the participant sharing available for me?
Yes, it is. Once you're promoted, you should be able to share.
Okay, perfect. I'll get started. I want to thank you, Chair Brooks, and ANC commissioners for an opportunity to discuss the mayor's fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. Again, my name is Delano Hunter, and I'm proud to serve as the director of the DC Department of General Services. So I've been at the helm now for a year. So getting my feet wet, learning the agency. And tonight I'm here to discuss the mayor's proposed budget. I'm joined by Shalice Grove. She's with the DGS External Affairs and Outreach Team, and also Sophia Tacola, your Ward 4 Mocha. She has joined as well. So the goal of this is to present the mayor's budget, to hear about your ideas, what you like, what you want more of, what you want less of, because it's really important to hear your voice. As has been mentioned a bit earlier, the council is convening their committee of the whole meeting tomorrow to vote on the budget and to share their kind of version of the mayor's budget that was put forth about a month ago. It's really important. The budget process, I recognize that there are some of us that may work for council. We may do this work professionally. There are some advisory neighborhood commissioners that are follow the budget very closely, but I know there's over 50 participants, and there may be some that may not be familiar with what the mayor's budget is and how it supports her vision to make DC a much better place. So with that being said, I'll jump into the slides. In the interest of time, I won't read them verbatim, but I'll try to just give you a few highlights, and then we'll share this presentation. Again, it's not too late to chime in. The council does have their first vote tomorrow, but there is time to still inform this process. Next slide. The state of the district is strong. The mayor likes to communicate that at every turn. While we have challenges and things that we're working through, we should be very proud of Washington, D.C. It's a resilient city. As we emerge from COVID-19, I think we fared better in some regards than other cities. Crime is trending in the right direction. Again, we have a ways to go, but it's trending in the right direction. We continue to lead the nation at tops for office of residential conversions. That's a huge pillar of the mayor's plan to create more affordable housing. And also when you look at tourism, population, and public school enrollment, they're all growing in the right direction. DC is a healthy city. The city remains strong, and it's something we all should be proud of. Next slide. There are some fiscal realities that make this year's budget cycle a bit challenging than others. The first would be, I would categorize that first bucket as just the cost of doing business. It has increased. It's very similar to, I'm sure, your household budgets, right? It's just what funds that you had maybe pre-COVID, they don't go as far as they do in this budget environment. The second point I would make is that we have had one-time funds, ARPA federal funds that were a lifeline during the days of the pandemic, which allowed us to do a little more. Those funds are expiring. And then last but not least, we've been accustomed to nearly 6% revenue growth from 2010 to present. That's projected to grow at about a 2% clip, so slowing revenues. So when you combine all of this together, that has resulted in a $4 billion gap between resources and expenditures through fiscal year 2029. Next slide. These are just a few of the mayor's guiding principles that she crafted this budget. First and foremost, to maintain core services, to prioritize programs that have a track record of working, and also that advance equity, and also to reset our spending so that, you know, as we look at the next 5 or 6 years in our fiscal health as a city, that we're on a track to be able to make those investments and supports in public safety, education, and downtown, and also to be able to carry out the work of government in a sustainable manner. Next slide. All right, our focus will be 3 primary areas: public safety, downtown, and education. And I'll get into those in the slides ahead and how that's reflected in the mayor's budget proposal. Next slide. Excuse me, from a public safety standpoint, I'll just highlight just a few bullet points. The first, I think it's really important that the mayor has proposed the creation of 40 community safety officers. And the importance of this is that it frees up sworn police officers to focus on public safety and crime fighting by transferring some of those duties that can be handled by civilians and by community safety officers to those responsibilities, to those positions. So really excited about that. And also there's an additional 3.5 million to extend the Pathways program. As a former employee of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Pathways is a proven model that is shown to be successful, and now we'll have an opportunity to continue to grow that program to engage some of our most at risk from being victims of violence and also perpetrators of violence, an opportunity to explore additional pathways. Next slide. Really excited about downtown investments. If you look at the first bullet point, that's the one I think that gets the headlines. There are a number of us that were really excited that we will continue to be the home of both the Capitals and the Wizards for the next generation to come. But also there's some other investments that support the growth of downtown. I would call out the 2.5 million to support pop-up and short-term retail as something that'll pay huge dividends as we support our businesses, and also 7 million in funding that's proposed to fully implement the Business and Entrepreneurial Support to Thrive, or the BEST Act, that really helps to streamline business licensing in DC. So it helps to keep DC competitive. It helps to cut through the red tape and bureaucracy, and we think that that's in our best interest as we look to be more welcoming to businesses to do business in the district. Slide. From an education perspective, there'll be a lot of discussion tomorrow about peer pupil funding and the amount of funding for DCPS. But I'll call out 2 other investments that are highly successful that the mayor has proposed to extend beyond this fiscal year. The first would be the 4.8 million for high impact tutoring. I think that is something now that's getting national attention, that's spearheaded by the Office of the State Superintendent for Education. It was really a crucial tool in helping kids to recover from the days of the pandemic. And it's a program, again, that's now receiving national attention. It's a model that we believe they're looking at DC closely to expand, and something that the mayor intends to continue in the next fiscal year. And then also, there is 500,000 in grants for educator wellness. Again, as we look to have an environment that not only promotes education, but seeks to retain our teachers, which are just crucial to educating our youth. It's very important that we have certain incentives and certain programs where we're being intentional about their wellness and sustaining their ability to continue to educate our kids. Next slide. From a housing and economic development standpoint, I'll call out the 101 million to modernize public housing facilities. This has been a priority of the mayor, DC Housing Authority under new leadership, Director Pettigrew, a colleague that I've had an opportunity to work a bit closer with over the last 90 days or so, just sharing resources and best practices, referring contractors to be a part of their competitive process. That's a priority of the mayor, because it's important that we have the ability to house residents, or to house residents that qualify for DCHA housing up to close to 100% of what their capacity is. And also there's 28 million for the Home Partnership Assistance Program, at HPAP, that helps first-time home buyers with down payment assistance. All right, next slide. From a recreation and libraries perspective, I'm really excited about a few investments. The first would be close to 600 and a little over 600,000 for enhanced security and mental health services throughout DC public library system. I think that's something that is a priority of DCPL and also of the mayor, and that's funded in the mayor's budget proposal. And then also a state of good repair blitz, which is in the text box that's sort of highlighted in gray. I know that's really important from my perspective as DGS director. Having dedicated money for work order funding is just crucial. I think earlier there was a constituent or resident that expressed concerns about the fencing repairs at Tacoma Dog Park and how that has languished. And I would say we certainly don't want those repairs to take a year. And it's something that we will resolve this fiscal year during the month of June. But to have dedicated funding is crucial. So really grateful for the mayor for seeing the need for this. It's something that we have received and has been increased and over the last few budget cycles. Also, Councilmember Lewis George has been a proponent of this as well. And that makes all the difference and allows DGS to close out these work orders in a much quicker manner. Next slide. All right, just a few more slides from a transportation and environment perspective. There's over 406 million that's being allocated to keep district streets, sidewalks, and alleys in a state of good repair. Also, there's 217 million to close the funding gap in WMATA's budget. So Metro bus and rail service can continue to be reliable for district residents and tourism, and just in our best interest to have a functioning WMATA system. Next slide. All right, from a Gov operations perspective, there are several capital investments. Of course, I'm really excited about the 6.8 million to support energy retrofits at DC government facilities. It's really important for us as an agency. Also, we're looking at other non-budgetary means. We just released our energy savings performance contract, a request for proposals. So really excited about that, where it's garnering both local and national interest, and also it'll help us to increase our sustainability goals and being good stewards of the district's environment. And then also there's 48 million to cover, again, just the rising cost, the increasing cost of doing business, from janitorial to building security to leasing office space and even paying our utilities, which would be of critical importance to the agency. All right, next slide. Just a few more from a Health and Human Services perspective. There is over 60 million that's proposed to replace the Federal City Shelter, which is downtown on 2nd and D, 2nd and E. That 64 million will cover the cost of building permanent supportive housing and also new beds for the residents and users of the Federal City Shelter, which is a long time coming. And then also there's 12 million in an emergency rental assistance program that will provide funding for residents who are facing housing emergencies and evictions. Next slide. All right, this is just a snapshot of those Ward 4 investments. I've had an opportunity to speak to some. Others, I'm sure, will come up during our Q&A portion, but here's just a snapshot here. All right, next slide. Again, transportation and environment and a few others. You'll all have these slides. And just a few more. Next slide. Of course, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer your questions this evening. If you have any thoughts about the mayor's budget, myself, Derek, Sophia, we're here to relay your questions, concerns, and ideas about the mayor's budget. And now, with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
I'm sorry. I was on mute. I guess I can get the ball rolling by asking the first question, and then I'll let the other commissioners ask theirs. I know that Tisha Cockrell, a former commissioner and also now the chair of the Friends of the Riggs LaSalle Recreation Center, is here. And my question is around money that's been allocated over past occasions for repair at that recreation center, and yet somehow it always gets reallocated, for some emergency purpose, which might be very legitimate. I'm not arguing that at all. But in the meanwhile, there's still needs at that recreation center that are not being addressed. And given your past background as the director of DPR and now the director of DGS, can you speak to money in the budget for that recreation center?
Sure, there's 3 million to replace the roof, and also an
Mhm.
additional 165,000 that's planned to add shading structures and make other what I would categorize as small scale improvements at the site. Additionally, Ms. Cockrell also flagged some ADA concerns with the door. I believe we have an ETA for the month of June for those repairs and other minor repairs throughout the facility.
Okay, thank you. And now I'll go to Commissioner Smith.
Good evening, Mr. Hunter. I did see the $18 million, of course, that was allotted for the Whittier modular swing space construction. Do you know if a site has been selected, and what is the timeline for engagement for that?
Sure. So I know we're working closely with DCPS to identify potential sites, and those sites will be socialized with the community prior to a selection. I don't want to get out in front of DCPS, but we are actively looking at several sites in the vicinity of Whittier.
Okay. And do we have a timeline or update on the Tacoma Dog Park fence?
Yes, during the month of June. That is my commitment. During the month of June.
Month of June.
Next week.
That's all I had. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, thank you for that presentation, Delano. Not specifically Ward 4, but out of curiosity, and when you opened, you talked about how strong the district was, and I just wanted clarification as to, with given the increased tourism we're expecting, we were still, and all the other positive things, we were still looking at decreased revenue for the district. And I was just trying to see how those two work together. Number one.
Sure. So it's still increasing. It's just not growing at the same clip, right? So 6%. Again, we've been accustomed for the past 14 years of averaging about 6% revenue growth. So now it's just growing at a slower rate, 2%. But I don't really think that in and of itself isn't the primary challenge. It's the rate at which costs are steadily increasing. Right. So it's no different than you may receive a cost of living adjustment at your job of maybe 1 or 2%, but yet groceries, rent, utilities, everything else seems to be going up at a much higher rate.
Cool. One comment on something I was excited about is to see the launch of the Office of Artificial Intelligence. So I'm hoping that's something that, grows in the district. Secondly, out of the downtown piece, I saw that 50 million is being invested to convert office space into residential units. What does that look like in real life? Like, what does 50 million in conversion of, office space do? What does that do for the whole housing issue we're facing in the district?
Sure. The mayor has a goal of adding, I believe, close to 8,000 residents downtown in the next few years. Not every building is suitable for a office to residential conversion, but we have seen success. There are several notable examples. I'll see if I can find a link and I can post some in the chat before the meeting is out. And the district actually leads the nation in office to residential conversion. So this 50 million goes towards incentivizing developers to pursue these projects in the districts and to make them to help to make these financially viable. And I would say, in addition, to that, we know if you house residents downtown, they need a space to recreate, right? If you look at investments in Franklin Park, what's proposed at Farragut Square, other government services will have to build out downtown to be able to serve those residents. So I can think that that's just a part now, the kind of amateur economist in me. We just need a much healthier mix. Like you have that mix, and when you look at some of the newer communities like the Capital Riverfront, which at one point was the fastest growing zip code in the nation, you see a mix of residential, office space, other commercial interests, and that's the balance we want to get closer to downtown.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Palmer.
Yes, thank you, Chair Brooks, and thank you, Director Hunter, for being here with us tonight, particularly as we approach 9 p.m. I just want to note that the commission has formally weighed in on the budget in the housing context via a resolution in February, which I will share via the chat on our housing justice priorities, which notes the dramatic need for funding for certain housing related things like emergency rental assistance. But I have two questions related to the Department of General Services in particular. We as a commission weighed in on the earlier side about the need for a DGS dashboard about the status of school facilities. And I'm wondering if you can tell us the current status of that dashboard and how it is funded and funded going forward. And I'm also wondering if you can talk about DGS integration into the 311 system and where that's at and whether that's funded or anticipated to be expanded in the future.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. I'll answer the first, your second part first, and that is just this January we expanded what services can be requested on 311 to include those those park spaces. We have received thousands, well, hundreds, if not thousands, of requests, and it's very helpful because that not at all times do we have eyes and ears on those outdoor spaces. So that has been a promising development as it relates to being able to request things on 311. We do have a dashboard that's currently available where you're able to look up by facility, specifically our schools, to be able to see what the open tickets and resolutions are. What we have heard consistently from residents is that they're looking for a more robust and sort of user-friendly experience. And what I've seen is the chief frustration. You know, when a work order is approved, it's really a financial commitment, right? And at times, work orders are approved, you know, sort of separate from what we actually have funding to accomplish. So one of the things that we're looking at beginning next fiscal year is to be a little more descriptive, right? We know we're really good at handling those emergencies, right? Typically, those are resolved within, and there are a number of them. We just had a flood over in Ward 6 earlier today, right? Those are typically done in short order. What tends to languish are those routine repairs, right? And that's why having dedicated work order reduction money that doesn't compete with our core services, landscaping, janitorial, paying for utilities, it's really important. So I think the combination of having a more robust and user-friendly dashboard, having better descriptors of how we describe work orders and where they are in processing, and also having dedicated funding, I think that'll get us closer to getting the results that residents seek.
Thank you. Commissioner Yates.
Yeah, I had two budget-related DGS questions, if I could get through them really quickly. The commission, I appreciate you being here tonight, Director Hunter. The commission had weighed in earlier this year on DGS's responses to rodent control on district-owned facilities. I'm going to send a letter. We never heard back. We heard back from the Department of Health on that issue. In short, DGS's response times for rodent control requests are actually less than what the district government provides to privately owned residences. And we were wondering, is it a budget issue for DGS? Like, we think it seems to not make much sense to have it take longer to fix a rodent problem in a school than it does in someone's private front yard. And so trying to figure out if that's a budget issue, the DGS, we need to advocate more funding to let you guys respond at that time in a timely fashion.
Sure. I think as it relates to DCPS, I think it's one of those things that is not that neatly fits into a standard work order, right? So let's say if there's a pest issue at a school, right, and that work order is open, let's say today, in most cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, there is a response within 24 to 72 hours, right? But there are various treatments that happen, right? So that work order may not be closed until, let's say they come at let's say the 36-hour mark, right? There's an initial treatment. Then they come back for subsequent treatment, sometimes 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. That work order isn't closed until the treatment course has ended. So when you close out that ticket, it's like, oh, wow, it's taken 40 days to address that. In actuality, that's not the case. The lion's share are addressed, and then there are multiple treatments before that ticket is closed out.
I would just appreciate also, like, if you guys we would love to see that posted on the resolution portal along with the DOH response, so that we can have transparency for our constituents who are concerned about these issues. The other question I had is DGS historically has not taken advantage of warranties on HVAC systems and other high cost equipment that have been installed in buildings. I know this has been an issue the auditor has raised with you before. In this time of tightening budgets, what are you doing to ensure that the government is using those free services that are available when we install new equipment in facilities across the district, to make sure we're using every last dollar of those warranties to make sure that we can save our tax dollars for new things?
Sure, I disagree with the auditor on that. In fact, I think she looked at Roosevelt in particular, and in Roosevelt, the general contractor actually made over $1 million in repairs to that, right? Not at the district's expense. We do have warranty managers, and in fact, we are now negotiating more robust warranties. And for some of our bids, I think like BART was the very first, instead of just a very typical 1 year sort of general builder's warranty, we're negotiating a 2-year general builder's warranty, in addition to the warranties for the specific components, whether it's the elevator, whether it's the HVAC system, et cetera. The one thing that I personally am really excited that is the true north for me, it was one of my pain points at DPR, is we want to get to a level of standardization with the types of systems that we use, right? Everything down to a faucet, to the types of doors we use. Like, it all matters. We want to get out of custom and one-of-ones for every building, because it's more difficult to maintain. So that is my commitment. I think by no means do I feel like we're there. There's a lot more we can do. I think it begins with standardization. We have warranty managers. We are expanding that program, and now even those warranties, we're negotiating a different type of warranty that protects the district. And
All right. Do you want to, Commissioner Yates, while you have the floor, do you want to read the question in the chat or do you want to move to the residents that have their hands raised?
Yeah, I'm happy to go through the Q&A first. Kimberly says, $500,000 for educator wellness sounds nice, but as someone who works in the school system as a non-teacher role, I feel confident in saying the most important things you could do for educator wellness is to sign the teacher contract, fund schools to be consistent with the increase in personnel costs, downsize central office if needed, and to remove the barriers that prevent teachers from meeting. One other thing you could do for educator wellness is ensuring that every classroom has a working lock on it. Not only does it directly impact safety, knowing locks are in place impacts educator wellness, not to mention a locking door prevents students walking into classes and disrupting teaching. Start with the basics, have every classroom have a locking door, and educator wellness will increase.
okay, all right, received and noted.
Gavin Baker wants to know, is the plan for LaSalle Backus to use the Whittier swing space during the modernization of LaSalle Backus Elementary?
I need to confirm. I want to be accurate. So I will, again, I don't want to get out in front of DCPS on some of their programming decisions. So I need to confirm, and I have to defer to DCPS. And we will clarify, and we'll articulate that with with Mr. O'Leary, State Board Representative O'Leary.
And Holly Garner just thanks you for committing to the fence repairs at Tacoma Dog Park in June. Chair Brooks, that's the end of the Q&A. If you want me to start promoting participants.
I would, please.
Tisha Crockrell.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Delano, Director Hunter, for your time and presentation today, and Chair Brooks for asking my question. And promoting me. So I have a few more for your budgeting considerations, Director Hunter. I received pictures from a neighbor across the street in regards to the field and the extreme amount of trash that was on the field. I don't know if there's budgeting for consistent cleanup. The, the field was a complete mess, and I can share the pictures with you as well. Also, locks on the other doors are completely out of order and broken. Might be something to take a look at. And lighting around the perimeter, especially on the Riggs Road side, is very dark. And I think that's it. But oh, and Splash Park. I know I saw that it was down, but then it was working about a few days ago. I wanted to know if that had been repaired recently, or if it's still in need of repair. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. Typically, there's a lag between field usage and when it's clean. I'd be surprised to see if it's not clean on if that extends beyond a day. Again, there's a few crews that are servicing the entire city. So if there's heavy usage, let's say on a Monday night, typically the goal is to have that resolved by early afternoon that next day, and that's just the cadence of trying to service 100 plus locations. Again, I think you've emailed me regarding those, and then I'm happy to look into those. With regards to the splash park, I think we had we had it serviced on Saturday on the initial opening day, and we've made a lot of upgrades to various splash parks. Some of those components, jets and nozzles, that was repaired early of Saturday afternoon, and then we didn't have any reports of it being down on Saturday, on Sunday, the rest of Saturday, Sunday, and then the Monday. So those two, and then I think the when we repair that door during the month of June, we'll also repair some of the other associated door and lock issues at Riggs at the Recreation Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions at this time.
Okay. Thank you. I'll hang around in the chat. I'm looking for that link. I know I promised to send a few links, so I'll share that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Also, Shalise Grove, she's joined me as well. If you have any questions, we'll happy to answer those on this chat or maybe even via email. Thank you so much, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. Actually, I do have another question before you go. And this is more to the cadence of the budget process. In the past years, we've had someone speak before the commission in March. And that wasn't the case this year. I'm curious as to whether or not this year the timing was just different, or next year should we be asking for a presentation? Let me not say next year because I won't be here, but the commission next year should ask in March or expect a presentation in April. Do you know the answer to that?
I think it depends, right? So typically, a few things. It depends on when the mayor releases her budget, right? There was a slight delay in releasing the budget to accommodate I think one of the chief financial officer's requests for one of the reserve funds. So it depends on when the mayor's budget will be released, and we're with COVID, there were a number of delays, right? Just given the reality of COVID. So I think maybe next year will be a little closer to what it normally is, a bit earlier. And then typically presentations are sort of spaced out by the executive office of the mayor. And this is fairly late. Like I know there's a markup to the first committee vote this tomorrow. Typically it's a little earlier. So I'll certainly relay that information that 4B would like to be. If I'm not mistaken, I think the mayor presented last year.
Yes, she was.
For 4B. Yeah, so the mayor, yeah, that's right. I was a part of that meeting. Yeah. Wow, this year's gone really fast. Seemed like a few months ago. But yeah, no, making a long story short, we'll relay that information. We want to make sure that 4B is a little earlier during this process.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move to our next presentation, which is regarding the Metro Branch Trail between Fort Totten to Tacoma. If you could elevate Samir and Sean Davis.
I see another person labeled as being with DDOT Omid Gami.
I
Sean and
wasn't,
Sammer, do you want this person promoted as well?
yeah, I wasn't.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just waiting for. Okay, I think we're good here.
Okay, welcome.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, everyone. This is Sam Arhani from DDOT. So today we'll be like presenting the MBT project with my team, Sean Davis from the construction team. So we'll discuss the construction phase for this project. And would you mind like share the slides? Sean, do you have a slide?
Sean? Yes. Okay, great. You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah,
Should we elevate? Is it Ahmed?
We got it, yeah.
There we go. Alexis is sharing. No, I wasn't able to.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, today we're gonna be like presenting the construction phase of the MBT. I know we have one under design, one construction, but today we're gonna be focusing on the construction phase. And I will leave you with Sean to go over the presentation, and then we go with the questions. So,
There we go. That ought to help. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, as Samir said, Sommer said, excuse me, he is the DDOT project manager. I am the consultant, construction manager / project manager. I do kind of do some consulting with Sommer for project management. And then we have Alexis as well for our community engagement team. Next slide, please. So really quickly tonight, I know we're kind of strapped for time, so I'm going to hit on some of the project objectives, what you can expect to see construction activity-wise. I'm going to briefly touch on the construction phases and what you can expect as a community from impacts from the construction. Then I'm going to speak some on safety and some of the maintenance of traffic.
One sec, please. Somebody needs to mute. Somebody's talking in the background. All right, thank you.
And then again, there at the end, we will have some information and some links to the community engagement portion of the project, and then we'll have a short period for some Q&A. Next slide, please. So really quickly here, the objectives of the Metro Branch Trail Project from Fort Totten Metro Station to the Tacoma Park Metro Station, essentially, is to construct a new section of on and off street multi-use trail. We're going to update utilities through the corridor of the project where the new trail is going in. We're going to improve some of the roadway frontage and parking provisions. And then we're also going to update some of the vehicle and pedestrian signage. Just a tentative schedule here. The contractor, Fort Meyer Construction, was given a notice to proceed on July 29th, 2023, so that's last year. So we are under construction at this point. Our anticipated final acceptance would be mid-July of 2025, which is next year in the summer, obviously. And then just some quick budget figures here. 80% of the project is federally funded and 20% funded locally. And the low bid there awarded to Fort Myers was a little over $12 million. Next slide, please. So what to expect construction activity-wise? As most of you see right now as you drive down Blair, you see some underground utility work going in there. Some of that is coordination and overlap projects with DC Water and Washington Gas. They're should be wrapping up their work here very soon, if not already. I know the last time I spoke to them, they were doing service connections directly to homes, which is one of the final phases. We also are going to see some stormwater upgrades as well as lighting and traffic signals, which I know I heard earlier about the New Hampshire, McDonald, and South Dakota intersection. And you're also going to see some flat work, which is basically the concrete work and then the trail itself. So you've got trail construction, curb and gutter, sidewalks, and ADA ramps, as well as driveway aprons And then we will be resurfacing portions of the roadway and installing some medians, some new medians, and replacing some of the older ones. And then we have landscaping and streetscaping improvements that will come through. Next slide. Some additional what to expect with regard to construction activities, just some general information here. The contracted work hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I will add there that we have restrictions with regard to vehicle traffic on certain parts of the project, which means they're not allowed to start until 9:30 a.m. and they must be out of the road by 3:30, 4 o'clock, and right in that time frame for the afternoon rush hour. So we are strictly adhering to that, and pushing the contractor to avoid any undue traffic delays and long queues along Blair Road and some of the other side streets as well. Saturday and night work, we typically we shouldn't have any more night work. Like I said, the construction is ongoing. Our night work, the major bulk of our night work was on First Place, down closer to the Fort Totten Metro Station, which is nearly complete in that area. So we don't anticipate any more night work, but we may have some Saturday work here and there as the construction calls for it. And there again, no anticipated work on Sunday. And just want to quickly reiterate, we'll not be using any mechanical impact demolition equipment between 7 p.m. at night and 7 a.m. So no over the night demolition noises. Next slide. So really quickly here, the construction phases. There are 5 phases, and they're essentially broken down by work task or construction task. And they are phase 1 from Fort Totten Metro Station to South Dakota Avenue Northeast. Like I said before, that portion of phase 1 is approximately 90% complete. We still have a few items that we're addressing. Phase 2 is from South Dakota Avenue Northeast to McDonald Place Northeast to Blair Road Northwest. And this is mainly on the east side of roadway to Oglethorpe Street Northwest. And there again, this is approximately 90% complete. And for your information, the intersection at New Hampshire, McDonald, and South Dakota is included in this phase 2 work. So that 90% complete is probably good news for you guys. Phase 3, and this is on Blair Road. It runs from Oglethorpe Street to Aspen Street, and this is again on the east side of the roadway, and that is approximately 35% complete. As you drive along Blair Road right now, you will see the phase 3 and phase 4 work moving through that area. And there again, phase 4 is from Oglethorpe to Aspen, and this is the west side of the roadway. I'm sorry, I lost it. There it is. And it also includes Sandy Spring Northwest. These activities on the west side of the roadway are only about 5% complete, and continuing to work that as we move through an area. And I'll explain to you really quickly here in just a second what our thought process is with regards to completing the construction as we move through an area. Phase 5 there again is between Oglethorpe on Blair Road, between Oglethorpe to Aspen, and then Sandy Springs Road as well. And this mainly includes the roadway medians. So we have reconstructed a couple of the roadway medians in phase 5. So that is approximately 25% complete. And there, like I said just a second ago, the intent with our construction and working with Fort Myer is to complete as much work as possible, if not all of it, in an area before we move on to the next area, or as we leave an area, I should say. The intent is to finish as much as possible, if not all of the work, so that when we do move out of an area, that it is complete, and you shouldn't expect to see us back there except for maybe a few punch list items. Next page, slide, please. Okay, with regard to community impacts, obviously you see the underground utility work going on along Blair, and if you've driven down First Place, and we've had some on Riggs Road. as well. So that's you can expect some delays from the underground utility work. Again, coordination with Washington Gas and DC Water, so we're coordinating with them closely to stay out of each other's way and not create undue traffic problems. So you can expect to see some lane closures and traffic pattern changes. We will have temporary daily closures or changes, and those will be indicated with the temporary barrels and the cones. And then the longer term closures or changes will be handled with concrete traffic barriers. So just an indicator, if you're driving down the road and you see barrels and cones, just know that that will be picked up at the end of the day, and the concrete traffic barriers will stay. There will be some temporary parking restrictions in some areas. There will also be some temporary impacts to building access, parking, and some mail parcel deliveries, but we are aware of this, and we are working with each location and as well as mail and parcel services and parking folks to maintain access as much as humanly possible. And so far, we have not had any issues and have been able to maintain access to the businesses in the areas that we're working and complete the construction at the same time. You'll also see some temporary sidewalk closures where we will have pedestrian detours put up with signage. Ideally, we like to move pedestrians if necessary to the opposite side of the street. In order to do that, it may seem odd to you where the signs are being placed, but we do try to move people across the street at pedestrian crosswalks and not, in the middle of the road for safety reasons, obviously. So if you do see the signage, we do kind of ask that you please adhere to that, because beyond that, at some point, before the next crosswalk, you will encounter some construction work there, and it could be dangerous. Also can expect to see some temporary closures of WMATA bus stops. The good news is here that we have progressed to the point in the construction where all of our impacts to bus stops are coming to an end. So we should, there were, I believe the last one that we have impacted is just north of Oglethorpe Street on Blair there. And that should be opening up here very soon. Next slide, please. Safety and maintenance of traffic. So some of the maintenance of traffic stuff that you're going to see as you drive through, you're going to see some advanced warning signs, some arrow boards. You could potentially see a portable variable message signboard, which will have a flashing message for upcoming traffic impacts or lane changes or just general information about the project. We will be maintaining a minimum of 10-foot travel lanes for vehicles through construction areas, as well as a minimum of 4-foot sidewalks. And we do strive for 6 feet with the sidewalks, but in some cases with the construction, we do have to resort to that 4-foot minimum, unfortunately there. And there again, as I said before, we do anticipate continuing to maintain access to businesses and residences throughout the construction project, and we do coordinate specifically with each location to maintain that access. Pedestrian safety there, we maintain ADA accessibility during construction, and as well as providing measures for protection from construction activities. An additional safety item there is all our field personnel are wearing high visibility PPE or personal protection equipment. So that's your vest, your hard hat, things of that nature, the pants. And then we do kindly request that, not enter construction work zones, for obvious safety reasons and visibility with the operators, things of that nature. Next slide. So Alexis, I'll let you discuss the public engagement and the project website and email.
Thank you, Sean. And I'm going to exit from the presentation real quickly to just do the slide demonstration from our website. So
There is a project website for this project. The link will be added to the chat or to the Q&A. On this website, you can find the background information for the project, as well as places to submit your concerns or look up where construction is currently. So here under project resources, there are the construction updates as well as public resources. In the construction updates, you will find the public notices and traffic advisories as they are published by DDOT, as well as the timeline of upcoming construction and the weekly construction reports. So this is our information about what construction has been done and where things are, as well as some pictures of the progress. There's also the public resources that includes information of our public meetings that have happened. So this presentation will also go up on the project website after this meeting, and you can see other meetings that we have done, as well as a recording from the public meeting in last year. And you can also find other project documents such as the designed plans and the final project plans that detail the construction of this segment of the trail. There is also information you can sign up to get email updates. We have a listserv that we send out information about updates of the project each month. And there's also the email metbranchtrail@dc.gov that you can send any of your questions and concerns to. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Sean or Samer.
Thank you. I think that's all we have for this project. This is all the decision we have. I don't know if you guys have any questions about MBT. I don't know if Sean and like to get welcome this project. And actually, I just want to note it somewhere else about this. I don't know if you guys know about the shutdown for the Tacoma Metro Station, because we may impact some traffic along Blair Road. That's something I just want to bring up to your attention in June or the summer. That's something I just want you to know about. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to start the questions and then I'll get to every commissioner. I want to point out along phase 2, I know it's 90% complete. Each year, this community has a block party on the 4th of July in the area where you are storing your materials. And I'm hoping that you'll be finished by then. But I know 90% is not 100%. Do you know when that remaining 10% will be completed and or those items will be moved? I also want to point out that I spoke with Cornelius Anderson several times, one with regard to the block party, and well, maybe not the block party itself, but the items along the curb and in the street. Your staff has not been good stewards of our block, and it's dirty. They leave their trash there. I can tell you what they all had for lunch today. Half the time it blows down into my yard. And so they need to, when you move to phase 3, you need to tell people to do a better job. They need to be better neighbors. In our case, the work's 90% done, and nothing that I raised to anyone changed their behavior. So I'm hopeful for the next group that something that you might say to them will in fact change their behavior.
Yeah, we're sorry about the trash. We kind of encourage our staff to make sure once they move, they clean everything after they complete their work. But for the phase 1 section, we're 90% complete. But we are in the process to discuss if we want to finish 100%, because in order to finish 100, we have to do the restoration for roadways and signage, and also change modify the signal heads for the intersection and trigger first place. But I can't promise on 4th of July will be completed, because we may need more time for restoration and for signage. And we're thinking about we finish maybe in the fall for the first section, for the first
And
phase.
so do you plan to have those things along the street that entire time? Because that's a blind curve, which is one of the reasons we were opposed to the bike trail being there. And you've never put up signage that says that you're working there or that there's anything there. And there are often near misses in terms of accidents right there.
We could keep some time just to make sure we're still working, because actually for the west side of the trail, it's kind of like it's kind of semi-completed. We're only waiting for the signage and pavement mark. But the problem, because phase one is associated for the east side of it, which is we still work on the other side for some storm drain, which that's what we hold us to complete this section. So now I think we're looking to complete that within 2 weeks from now. But if we want to do like a partial opening for the trail, so that's still in discussion. I don't want to talk about this now. I have to check with the team and see how far we're going to.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about opening the trail. I'm talking about removing the items that you have along the curb.
Summer, do you want me to answer?
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you, Commissioner Brooks. I will speak to the contractor tomorrow and make them go out there and clean that up if there's any mess. And if it's not cleaned up by the end of the week, there will be a problem. I wasn't aware. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate that very much. As far as removing the materials, I can speak to them and see what the time frame is. I know they were using that area for staging of some of their RCP pipe or the concrete pipe, and some of the other things and materials while they were working there at that intersection. So I'll go out there tomorrow, take a look at the area and see if anything needs to be remain. If not, then I will certainly have them move that stuff and get out of the way for your July 4th event.
Thank you. Also, when you're out there, I noticed today that they put up the crosswalk signs, not the actual lights, but like, the walk and don't walk flashers.
Right.
And on this side of the street, they're already covered by the trees from the park. So that's Park Service land. I don't know what you have to do to have a conversation with them, but the trees already need to be trimmed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have to speak to National Park Service about that, because you are absolutely correct. That is National Park Service property. And we typically do not go on their property. So we would definitely have to speak to them about that and see if they have somebody that could trim the trees, or if they have actually anticipated on us doing it. We do have some trees along the corridor that we do have to trim back for the signal installations, streetlight installations and things of that nature. So we can definitely look into that.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, I wanted to ask broadly, this has been something that's been in prior resolutions from the commission, and I've heard from constituents about beautification opportunities around the project when it turns onto Aspen, particularly the underpass there. Previous commission resolutions had requested murals or other beautification efforts when the project goes through that area. And DDOT had told us in prior presentations that they would look into working with their agency partners on that. So wondering if there was any update or progress at the intersection of the Aspen and Blair planning, and what your beautification plans were for that area.
So yeah, this is still in the plan to do that. So once the budget is complete, we're gonna look into that. So we keep this conversation till the budget is completed, and then we still have that discussion to do something there. So that's still like on the plans to do. So that would be moved, coordinate with the PSD division within DDOT, working with other agencies to add that. So that's something still in the plan to do.
Do you have a good contact at PSD that would be coordinating that effort so that I can direct people to them?
Yes, Michael Vino, I don't know if you get familiar with his name. Yeah, he's the one will be, because once the project complete, will be handed to him to be like in charge and maintain the project complete. So Michael Alvino will be the one. I could share his information in chat if you guys want it.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, I believe a resident has a question, Commissioner Yates, and there might be one in the chat. I'm not sure. No, that's something else.
I had seen it from them in the chat too, so I was going to read it, but it looks like their hand is now lowered.
Okay.
Now they're back.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Powell, you should be able to talk now.
Ms. Powell, you're on mute.
Okay, my question relates to the traffic lights that were installed on Saturday on New Hampshire at the intersection of South Dakota, McDonald, and New Hampshire. My question is, when will those traffic lights be operational?
Summer, you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so as Summer was saying earlier, right now we're putting up the hardware. So this is not the first time that we have been made aware that that intersection, there is a concern in the community about crossing New Hampshire. And we are trying our best to get that intersection up and running as quickly as possible. There are a lot of steps to installing the infrastructure to get those lights functioning. But I will say at this point, we do have the hardware on site being installed, which is good because there's usually a long lead time for those type of construction materials, especially the signal heads themselves. So we've got those, and those are going up. Our next step, and actually I think they've already started, is to pull the underground cables underneath the ground to actually feed the power and the information to the signals of when from the traffic control cabinet and things like that. Sorry, I don't want to get too technical on you, but yeah, the next step after that would be, looking at programming the software and putting down the roadway markings to match what the signals are telling you to do, especially from a pedestrian standpoint. So yeah, we're hoping to have those sometime in the fall up and running and functioning for pedestrians to use to cross New Hampshire Avenue, and then to control some of the vehicle traffic coming through there, because I know they come over that hill over the railroad tracks kind of fast sometimes. So I understand completely. I hope that answers your question. Sometime in the fall of this year.
Ms. Powell,
Yes,
is that clear for you?
yes.
Right.
We're just wondering when it would be operational, since they've been the request has been on the books for a while.
Right. So they're saying right now they're saying the fall.
Okay, well, thank you.
All righty. Have a good evening.
You're welcome.
Same to you.
All right, Mr. Davis, I think that was the only other question. Did we cover the chat yet, Commissioner Yates? There wasn't anything in the chat, right?
Yes, we've already covered it.
All right, great. Well,
And if there are any other questions, if something comes up, you can use the email that Alexis provided and send questions, and they will usually come straight to either Summer or myself, and we'll give you a response as quickly as we can.
all right, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to move to our final presentation, which is with regard to the replacement of the communications tower at the Metropolitan Police Department 4th District Station. I guess you need to elevate, I shouldn't say I guess, you need to elevate Spiro Giannitis, Lee Peterson, and I think it's Sherry Subar. Commissioner Gilligan, is there anything you need to say about the project while we're waiting for them to come on board?
Really just a first opportunity to learn from the project team about the impacts that it might have in the surrounding streets.
Okay. Mr. Peterson, who's taking the lead?
Ms. Schubert is going to go ahead and do the presentation with the slides. Can you?
Oh,
you
it's
have the
Schubert.
slides?
I'm sorry. We have a typo on our agenda.
Oh. Okay.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Cherie, can you go ahead and bring up the?
Yes, good afternoon. It says disabled share. I cannot share my screen.
Why don't you just give it a second? Once you've been elevated as a presenter, you should be able to share.
Okay.
So the presentation will go over the existing conditions there at the 4D police station, MPD, and then what the basic plan is for the removal and installation of the new tower.
Did it come up yet?
No, it's disabled. It says host disabled attendee screen share. So
Commissioner Yates, is there anything you can do to address that?
No, because I'm just a co-host. I can't make people a host or change the security settings. Commissioner Palmer has to do it.
Okay, can you email me the presentation quickly and I'll share my screen?
okay.
I can do it. I just ran to the restroom. Who is the person I need to make a host?
Sherry Shubar.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shiri Shubar with AlphaTech PC. I'm accompanied by Lee Peterson and Spiro Gianniotis from AlphaTech, and I will provide a brief summary for the 4th District Communication Towers Replacement Project. I will go briefly over the project, just like Mr. Peterson mentioned, but I will give a quick overview, introduction about our company and our role in the project, and then we're going to share a few slides illustrating the design. First, I'm with AlphaTech PC, as I mentioned, which is an architectural and engineering firm in DuPont Circle, DC. We have been in business for over 50 years, and our main clientele is local and federal government. Our specialty is the public safety for those local and federal government agencies. With that, with over 50 years in business, we have a wide portfolio of projects ranging from, regular office buildings all the way to fleet facilities, laboratories, and all other prototypes. And our clientele include, Army, Navy, FBI, DOJ, DGS, just to name a few. With that, moving over to our role in this project, the MPD for the tower replacement. We are the design team. So basically, one of the main objectives that we had is to provide a construction drawings that allow the project to go to permit, which enable it to be constructed. So basically, we were the design team, and part of that design effort, involves coordination with our in-house consultants, including electrical, plumbing, etc., and also included outside consultant that we needed to develop the project in terms of tower specialists or technology engineers and others. And of course, to our partners at DGS, coordinating with them as well, of course. So with that, I'm going straight to the project. And just to give everyone an overview of where it's located, it's almost this central area. If you can see my mouse, it's this central block, which has these two tall towers. One is 700 feet tall and the other is 400 feet tall. And you can see there is the existing parking lot. Next to it is the MPD for the headquarters. Here you can see this is Georgia Avenue. To the other side, this is the 9th Street, Northwest. And just generally overview of the area, it has a variety of buildings. We have some on the top, we have residential use, we have the park here, and then at the bottom we have a public school. Adjacent to the MPD for the towers, we have this large Walmart supercenter. And then on the other side, to the left, we have a couple of commercial establishments, fast food, and then we have a couple of churches here. So all of that to say that has wide variety. It's a mixed use area which would lead us to our next slide about the zoning, which is also to establish that it is MU, which is mixed use, and RA, which is residential apartment. So basically all of that is allow for low to medium density construction and has some level of flexibility of, you know, residential in addition to commercial and institutional buildings, which as we just saw from the overall context analysis. Moving on to the actual project, as I mentioned earlier, the existing right now has two towers. One is the 400 feet and the other is 700 feet. And then we have the parking, and then we have this headquarters. The project consists of demolishing one of the tower first, and then building a new tower that is 500 feet. Then the next phase will be relocating the parking to the, you see here on the north area, says proposed temporary parking. And then the last phase will be to demolish the 700 feet tower completely. So basically we had two towers, we are demolishing them, and we have only one tower. And the reasoning of all of this is so we can relocate the existing antennas from these two towers to the new tower, which these antennas support not only the the infrastructure that is for the Secret Service, some of it is for the 911, some of this for the police, but also for the residents of DC in terms of their mobile service and connection. And we need that. The whole reason of this design is because the existing two towers are no longer in compliance. So we have to provide this solution, this design solution, to be able to accommodate all of this, important services for all of DC residents. And we wanted to have many, with our design efforts, we had to look at many, parts of this equation to see what would be the best and how we can provide the best solution with the least intrusive, least intrusive measure. So basically the tower height is based on, the engineering requirement that can support all of these antennas and can have continuation of services. And also it has less impact on the neighborhood. So moving on to the next slide, we had this solar analysis to compare the impact of these two towers. You can see on the top side, this is the two towers and how the shading just extends, the extends, and the other image below represent the new tower, the design that we have designed, and its impact. So just by looking at the two images, you can tell that the impact of the surrounding will be greatly reduced, and it will not have, the consequences on the adjacent surrounding. It will be an improvement from what we had before. Lastly, we wanted to see the visual impact of this new design. So we had this before and after image. So here you can see the before, you can see the two towers and how, the height of them and, the obstruction of view and all of that. And while you can compare it to the other image, which is just speculation of our design, but of course it's based on the engineering and the height that is proposed for the design. And you can see it is less intrusive and less of an obstruction of view in the term of, visual impact to the neighborhood. So with that, this is my brief introduction. I will open it up for discussion. If anyone has anything that like to ask, please do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Can you stop the share for me so I can see the commissioner?
Yes, 1 second.
Thanks. Commissioner Gilligan?
Thank you. The rendering there is pretty nice to see. The traffic flow plans, they come later in the process, right? To work with DDOT, especially on the street on Peabody where the Walmart parking garage is. It's already, there's a ton of traffic there. So just curious about this step. I think it's happening later, but can you confirm that?
Yeah, Sheree, I'll take this one. So we're getting ready to submit a permit package for DOB to review. And in that will become a traffic study that was put together by AMT, our civil engineering subconsultant. And most of the work will be really impacted on Quackenboroughs. So it won't not necessarily won't affect on the other side of I'm sorry, the Wall Street side is Peabody. That's not as much of an impact on that side other than construction traffic to get onto the site will come from that area. But most of the work on demolition and construction of the towers will really come from more 9th Street and Cracker Bros.
Okay. And the other question I had was on the relocation of parking to the MPS land, the green lot there. There's I think a monthly like meal giveaway from a local organization that happens on that green space. So just want to make sure you guys are communicating with them.
We have been communicating with the National Park Service, so we would just need to know who needs to be communicated with this food giveaway area, so they'll know when that temporary parking area will be become really not available for a period of time. So
yeah, sounds good. I'll follow up with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes, quick question. Thanks for the presentation. It is looking less intrusive, and I heard the mention of it being out of compliance. What's the expected life of this new tower? Should it go up? Like, is it future ready, or is it something that, will be in this same position in 2 years or something like that? Just
Oh,
curious.
no, these are 20, 30-year life expectancies.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, I think you guys are free to go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move next to the consent calendar, which has one item on it, a letter detailing the procedural history of proposed development at 6928 Maple Street Northwest and highlighting the continued concerns re Petra development. This is Commissioner Palmer, Brooks, Yates, and Smith. This has been up on the website for review, and as is the case with all consent calendar items, it is not open for discussion. So with that, I'll take a motion to move the consent calendar as presented.
I'll move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
everyone. I can't see Jenin
We also don't have Commissioner Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah,
So
my video
Commissioner
is
Tiffany Johnson, I need you to turn on your camera if you're around, and Commissioner Jenin Berry, I need you to turn on. I don't know why I'm using first and last names. I'm very sorry. It's getting late. It's getting weird. If you're available, I need you to turn your camera on, or I need you to unmute so I can know your vote.
I'm here. My camera's disabled. It says I can't turn it on, but I'm here.
Let me see if I can do it. There you go. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson, are you there? Okay, I think we lost Commissioner Johnson. So that would be 369.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we'll move to the final item on the agenda, which is Resolution 4B240501, noting the history of requests and calling for installation of meaningful traffic safety infrastructure at the intersection of South Dakota Avenue Northeast, Ricks Road Northeast, as well as the intersection of Missouri Avenue and New Hampshire Avenue Northwest. Commissioner Brooks, Yates, Palmer, and Smith. I'll start by saying that this resolution was floated through the Vision Zero Committee. There was conversation around the resolution. Everyone seemed to support the idea of meaningful infrastructure safety infrastructure at that intersection. When that intersection, during rush hour, that intersection backs up every day because traffic goers do not abide by the red light. They block the box. That then prevents everyone else from going on 3rd Street. That then backs up to Oglethorpe Street, which someone was talking about earlier, or Eastern Avenue, then blocks New Hampshire Avenue, and it creates a gridlock that could be rectified if people honored the traffic light at that intersection. Because we had a commissioner not interested in seeing a red light camera at that intersection, I removed it from the consent calendar. I, however, think that it can only harm someone if they're breaking the law. So if there's a traffic camera there and no one ever runs the light, no one ever gets harmed. However, people are harmed every day when people block the box. And so we're asking DDOT, and I'll use the 3rd Street example that we talked about earlier. We asked for meaningful resolution to that 3rd Street corridor in, I believe, 2019. If not 2019, then definitely 2020. And it took 4 years to get to the point where something was done. And at the same time, we've made requests with regard to this intersection in the past, and we're still in a place where it's not resolved. And so for that reason, we've put forth this resolution, and I've asked everyone to support it. Does anyone have any question with regard to the resolution before I make a motion? Commissioner Palmer.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I'll echo what you said, Chair Brooks, about this going through the Vision Zero committee for discussion among the members, and several of the requests about traffic calming infrastructure, which supplement the request for automated traffic enforcement, came from committee members. And it's part of what I see as the committee's commitment to considering traffic safety holistically and always with an eye toward infrastructure fixes for traffic safety issues that ideally will prevent these things from becoming a problem.
I'll also add that while our resolution does not specifically ask for a traffic camera, DDOT doesn't need a resolution from the commission to make that decision. They can put a traffic camera anywhere at any time. I also want to talk about the intersection of Missouri Avenue and New Hampshire Avenue. During rush hour, at that location, people stack the right turn only lane in an effort to jump the traffic at that light. And so the right lane backs up and people are unable to turn. So we're asking for DDOT to do something to address that issue so that the right turn lane can be used as it was originally intended. With that, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll make a motion. Commissioner Yates.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for your hard work on this, Commissioner Brooks. I know this area has been an ongoing issue for you, and I've heard you raise it at various presentations and conversations over the last few years. I appreciate your comprehensive approach to traffic safety here.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, and I just going to jump on what Commissioner Yates has said, especially with the traffic circle nearby the intersection of South Dakota and Riggs. Yes, loving that movement there. However, I cannot support this resolution as presented. One of the first reasons, I'm looking at the resolution and it's calling for the installation of meaningful traffic infrastructure, which, I think even based on Commissioner Palmer's comments, seems to talk about ATE or automated traffic enforcement. There are several equity issues with that. Here in DC, I pulled up some stats. We know that between 2016 and 2020, and that is a little old data, but more than half of all traffic fine revenues came from neighborhoods where Black and brown folks were the majority. That can be problematic with wealth building. Also, many studies have shown that ATE programs can exacerbate racial inequity. At best, the literature is mixed and non-conclusive. Those fees tend to hurt lower income families. What I am for is in favor of a traffic study of this area. When I look at this resolution also, I see it opens up with talking about the goal of having 0 fatalities Having lived at this intersection for over 5 years, I have not noticed one fatality in that intersection as a result of traffic issues. I think a lot of the complaints that we are hearing is, yes, the blocking the box, but given the demographics of this community, in addition to the Black and brown issue, I'm thinking about the seniors that are coming to this community. And I think, you know, a better traffic calming situation or solution for this intersection would be traffic control officers during that rush hour area time or window that we're speaking of. Typically, the gridlock is in the mornings, not in the afternoons. And I just walk through the cars, but I'm a city person, so I don't know if it's folks from different parts of the area or different parts of the country who are advocating for this, but there are some serious equity issues that I think must first be considered before supporting this. And also, anything else I want to add? Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'd be willing to wait and see how much city support we could get into getting real live traffic officers at that intersection, like Tanya Hutchins, who was on the call earlier, mentioned.
So let me respond and say a traffic study was completed several years ago when we first asked for meaningful traffic infrastructure at this intersection. Infrastructure doesn't necessarily mean a red camera light. Infrastructure could mean flexi posts. It could mean a median. It could mean a lot of things. And depending on the intersection, the infrastructure is based on the recommendation of the traffic engineers, number one. Number two, I've been on a meeting with the mayor herself, with the director of DDOT, and been told they're not paying for traffic control officers. I'm not calling and asking again. So
Okay.
someone
I'm happy
else,
to make
another
that call.
commissioner is more than welcome to make that request again, but I've been told no. So to me, no meant no. And I'm not going to keep asking for the same thing over and over again. And to that end, Chick-fil-A had to pay for the traffic control officers to be there when they were there. There have never been traffic control officers in that intersection when the city has paid for it in my tenure. And so no matter how much I advocated for it, it didn't happen. Commissioner LaRoya Huff was on that call. Barbara Rogers was on that call as the president of LRCA. DDOT was on the call. The mayor was on the call. And at that time, the head of DCRA, now DOB, was on that call. And if the mayor tells me no, she doesn't tell me no twice. That being said, number two, I think it's insulting to suggest that this is somehow harmful to Black and brown people, because it's not harmful to anybody that's not breaking the law. So if you're not running the light, you ain't getting a ticket. And that's just the bottom line. White, black, blue, brown, don't matter. Don't run the light, don't get a ticket. Run the light, get a ticket. That's across the board. That's anybody. So it's not a wealth issue. It's not a race issue. It's a traffic issue. It's a licensing. It's an abiding by the law issue for me. And while you might be willing to walk through cars, people with strollers might not be as willing to stick their baby out into the street in front of a car. Seniors might not be as willing to walk through the car, since we're talking about seniors. But rush hour traffic is a problem. And I've lived here 25 years. And so I can point to the many, many problems. I can tell you about the car that was driving down 3rd Street and flipped over and slid down through the traffic light at that intersection, which I'm sure there are other people on this call that can attest to as well. And I know that your residents are interested in it because they've contacted me, and I can name them for you. But I mean, you have every right to vote however you want. But to suggest that I'm somehow going to purposely harm Black and brown people is insulting to me. And I take offense to that. We don't have to agree. We can respectfully disagree. But to imply that somehow I'm going to suggest something that's harmful to my own demographic is something that I take exception to.
And you shouldn't take it personally. This information, this data is backed up by the Washington Post, supported by the Fines and Fees Justice Center, as well as the DC Fiscal Policy Institute, as well as the Federal Highway Administration has looked at ATE equipment as something that has maybe reduced right angle accidents, but also results in sometimes in an increase in rear end collisions because people are trying to stop, trying to avoid that ticket, and then you end up with more rear end collisions. So what I am in favor of is just having that part removed, this intersection removed from this resolution. And, you know, happy to look at maybe conducting a newer study, because a study from 7 years ago, I don't think is going to be that useful.
The study
for,
wasn't 7 years ago.
my apologies. You can tell me when the study was, but this community is changing. And as of January 2025, we will have 100 senior families on that community. So it's not that I'm against traffic calming solutions. I'm against that solution, or ATE as a consideration, because of its documented harm to Black and Brown communities. And
So
I
what
would
I would suggest,
I would never suggest that you would do that intentionally, but that is sometimes the byproduct of
fair
some
enough.
goodwill ideas and thoughts.
Fair enough. What I would suggest then is, once DDOT does their study, which is what we're asking them to do, and they provide a solution, that you could then discuss the solution. But I don't want to limit them in how they can arrive at a solution.
Well,
I also don't want to monopolize this, so I'm going to open it up to Commissioner Yates and Commissioner Palmer.
But my concern is that the way this is titled, we note the history of requests, and then it actually says we are calling for the installation of meaningful traffic safety infrastructure. That's what it's titled. So this
Right, but
doesn't seem to be.
the process is, we make the request, they do the study, they
Mhm.
come back with a notice of intent, and you have 30 days to respond to that notice of intent. That has
Mhm.
always been DDOT's process. So
Mhm.
regardless of how it's titled, that's still the process, number one. And number two, the title is asking for all options. It's not limiting them to just a red light camera. In fact, it doesn't even mention that. Go ahead, Commissioner Yates or Palmer, whoever wants to go first.
Commissioner Palmer appears to be eager to speak, so I'll go after her.
Is it the hand wagging that's signaling that? I think that there has been a fundamental misunderstanding and misreading of the resolution, which calls on DDOT to consider the possibility of certain traffic safety infrastructure and lists some things that the commission would like for DDOT to consider, but does not limit DDOT to those things, and doesn't say that any specific thing should be installed. It just says that things should be considered. And here is what we have discussed and come up with via the commission and the Vision Zero committee.
So, and just to respond to that, when I'm looking at the bullet point that says advisory neighborhood
That's out
commission.
of order. The chair has to recognize you.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know. Just be
Go
careful how
ahead,
you
Commissioner
be
Thompson.
careful how you say it, though.
It's fine. Go ahead, Commissioner Thompson.
Yeah, just be careful how you say it. Anyway, what, and have I been recognized?
Yes, you have.
Thank you. Well, I almost lost my point. Advisory Neighborhood Commission 4B requests consideration of the following mechanisms to address traffic safety concerns at this intersection. I'm looking at that bullet point. And then when we go down to the sub bullet points, it says the deployment of ATE at both intersections, right? So then the second is the deployment again of ATE at the intersections, right? And then we get to, here's the part where I think I got deployment of traffic control officers at both intersections as appropriate. But that one seems to leave off South Dakota and Riggs, that third sub bullet. So we don't even consider that, you know, traffic control officers could be at the South Dakota and Riggs.
That's wrong.
Are you reading what I'm reading?
I'm not reading it the same way. I think every request was for both intersections.
But in that third sub bullet, we see the specific mentioning of Missouri Avenue Northwest. We see the specific mentioning of New Hampshire Avenue Northwest. And again, just full circle, this opens up with 0 fatalities as that being the foundation of this. And I'm not hearing about fatalities in this intersection. So I said my piece.
Okay, Commissioner Yates.
Yeah, a couple things. One is I would just say that like the goal of Vision Zero, whether abbreviated here to serious fatalities, is for serious fatalities and serious injuries across the city. As you know, within the District of Columbia, there have been more than 2,800 serious traffic injuries this year, right? Which is more than the people who've been injured by gun violence in this city, more than the number of people who've been killed by opioid overdoses in this city. It's a number that continues to rise. So I think to some extent, this is kind of an all hands on deck, all solutions are necessary moment. And while I don't dispute the validity of your statistics around ATE, we should acknowledge our place in a community in Ward 4. We are certainly not the most disadvantaged community in the District of Columbia, right? Nor are we the most racially concentrated community in the District of Columbia. And if we successfully oppose automated traffic enforcement in our community and the same traffic camera that there's been money budgeted for gets installed by DDOT somebody else, we could actually contribute to the equity problems that you're talking about, because we could be moving, right, from a community with active and involved commissioners who have the resources to oppose things like AT in their community to a community with fewer resources, right? We could be reallocating that commission away. So not in our backyard isn't always the same thing as standing up for equity. And then also just finally, I'd say that some of that is just, right, as you know, a legacy of the way we build our roads, right? And this is a long and horrible legacy that needs to be fixed, right? Like the revenue coming from those communities doesn't mean that those are the people in the communities receiving the fines. It means we built our highways there, right? And that we pollute and we continue to drive lane after lane of traffic through those communities. And some of that happens here in Ward 4 too. And I think it's just going to be a long process to slowly move for these forward these processes to slow traffic, right? To reduce our areas where we have vulnerable seniors and pedestrians at risk from speeding automobiles from out of state. And I think that's part of why I'm happy to welcome all solutions in my community to this problem. And I would like to move the resolution, Chair Brooks.
And I just wanted to follow up with that, and thank you for those statistics, but those are not the case for South Dakota and Riggs in terms of pedestrian fatalities. So instead of, if we're not going to do it at every single intersection, and I think people's minds are made up, but I did just want my opinion on the record, so I
You're
yield.
more than welcome to share your opinion and have your voice heard, and I'm never going to prevent you from doing that. I think at this point, because we're never going, you and I don't see eye to eye on this issue. I'm putting forward the resolution. I'm moving that the resolution be accepted as presented. And you have every right to vote, you know, as you see fit. So is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it, Chair Brooks.
Yes.
There
Okay.
are some comments in the Q&A if that's of relevance.
I was just going to flag that I can read those, Chair Brooks. Darlene J says, our seniors with dementia can't walk through that intersection. Why should we have to wait for a fatality to occur? Shouldn't we want a solution before a fatality?
Darlene, my proposal is that we would have traffic calming officers at that intersection during rush hour.
I would just say also, I can't get traffic control officers at area elementary schools for the children who need them. And I would certainly object to any proposal that proposes that TCOs be assigned to a commercial intersection before the area in front of schools first.
Well, I think that's probably lack of understanding of this community, where it's already has a high population of seniors. The same community that takes care of its children should take care of its seniors. It's a shanty of a community that does not look after its seniors and take those
There's a
extra
motion on the table that we need to vote on
to ensure their safety. And you may vote on. I'm
Thank
done.
you. The motion has been seconded, and I move. I'm sorry. So all in favor?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I made the motion, and I believe Evan seconded the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
Nay.
Abstaining? Michael, I'm sorry, but I didn't see your hand at all. I can't hear you.
I'm a yay.
Okay, so that means if I saw everyone's hands correctly, there are 8 yays and 1 nay. Is that correct?
No, it's nine,
Nine.
and 1.
3, 6, 8. Okay, I can't count. It's after 10. 9 yeas and 1 nay. All right, with that, the motion passes and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for hanging in, and thank you for the spirited conversation. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.